What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the PFF NFL show. Trevor, Sikkema, Dalton, Wasserman here with you guys to recap everything that we saw from Week 9 in the NFL. We're going to go through every team's top 5 graded player. We're going to tell you the stat that told the story, get a most impressive, most disappointing, explain some grades here to you guys as we reveal the PFF grades for this week. It's going to be a good time. Dalton? How you doing, my friend?
Good. This week was eventful, wasn't it? Didn't it just feel like we got all the wild and wacky? College football was all about upsets, and it kind of felt like the same way in the NFL, too. We just got everything turned upside down again.
You know, obviously the Chiefs and the Bills was sort of the marquee matchup of the week, right? And we had that, and then when you looked at the slate, I think before yesterday, you may have thought, these results, these matchups, they don't really do anything for me. And as the NFL often is, you had upsets, you had crazy performances, you had a lot of things that you expected you'd see, but a lot that you didn't expect to see. Maybe closer games than we thought was going to be the case. So it's going to be a good time getting to go through this, as it is every single week. If you guys want to see all the numbers for yourself that we're going to talk about here on the show, PFF Plus subscriptions, how you can follow along here on the show. You can see all these grades before even the show starts at 1 p.m. Eastern. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but if you guys have a PFF Plus subscription, you guys can see all of that and all the data points for yourself. So make sure you go do that. PFF NFL Show 25. That's how you get 25% off that PFF Plus subscription. So make sure that you guys are going to do that. First game, let's talk about Sunday Night Football. I think that's where we got to start. That's where we often do. But the Seahawks and the Commanders, on paper, beginning of the season, I think this game had a lot to be excited about. And even maybe going into this week, right? I mean, okay, the Commanders are getting Jaden Daniels back, and obviously we're going to talk about his injury and sort of the long-term impact of that. But, man, the Seattle Seahawks were rolling, and it felt like with this game specifically being in Washington, this might be a really good game here. And it turned out to basically be anything but. It turned out to be another game that Seattle was absolutely dominating, like start to finish. And there's a lot of things that I think are short-term for this game, but more important, long-term takeaways for both of these teams. Before we talk about that, though, let's get into the top 5. Top 5 graded players that we had for the Seattle Seahawks. At the very top of the list, it is Jackson Smith-Njigba, who is just simply having one of the best seasons of any skill position player, not just a wide receiver here this season, an elite 90.3 overall grade in this game. Safety Ty Okeda with a 89.8 right behind him. Cornerback Reek Woolen. Dalton, the man's on the trade block currently. And if it was his last game in Seattle, man, it was a pretty good one here. 82.7 overall grade there. Wide receiver Torrey Horton, their rookie, with an 80.7. Linebacker Ernest Jones, an 80.3. And then Sam Darnold. I know we're going to talk about Sam Darnold, but another elite game, a 92.6 overall PFF grade. On Washington's side of things, their rookie, Ja'Cory Cross-Demerit. You like to see him in the top 5. I don't know if Washington wants to see him at the very top of the list, but he is having a good year, and he was the top man here with a 72.4. Wide receiver Deebo Samuel, a 70.2. Offensive guard Tyler Biadasz with a 69.7. Tight end John Bates with a 69.6. Linebacker Frankie Louvu, a 69.0. And then Jaden Daniels, before his injury, a 68.7. Seattle absolutely dominates this game. 38-14 was the final score here from this one. Dalton, what was your stat that told the story?
The game was over at halftime because Sam Darnold has solidified himself as an MVP candidate. It's that simple.
No question.
You look at basically a perfect first half that he played, 16-16, 282, 4 touchdowns, 3 big-time throws, a 95.2 passing grade in the first half of this game, and they go into the half up 31-7. It's that simple. You just got the culmination and now the continuing into the second half of the year of what Clint Kubiak and Sam Darnold have now done together in Seattle through their first 9 games, or I should say, I think 8 games. It's been unbelievable to see what this Seattle offenses look like. I thought there was a lot of positive going into this year after, the turnover they had in the offseason, trading Geno Smith, trading DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett gone, all of the turnover they had, new offensive coordinator. I thought there should have been some more optimism than there was in the offseason, even though there was a lot of turnover. I didn't think it would look this good this quickly, and right now this is one of the best best offenses in football. They've got young contributors all over the place. Jackson Smith-Njigba right now might be the offensive player of the year, along with Darnold in the MVP race. They're running the ball. It's well enough. It's a little bit inconsistent still. It's a young offensive line they're running behind, but two really good tight ends in A.J. Barner, Elijah Arroyo. Torrey Horton, the fifth-round pick, stepping up. He's got a lot of speed and talent, adding a vertical element to this offense. But at the end of it all, it is Sam Darnold in this continued emergence, right? Last year, he was really good under Kevin O'Connell, but everyone went, okay, that team's loaded, and O'Connell's a top 5 play caller, and everything else that goes in with that. And then when he was under pressure against the Lions and the Rams, he couldn't get it done. This is even a different guy than last year. Quicker decisions. He was 9 of 10 on 10-plus yard throws in this game. Just unbelievable stuff that we're seeing from him, and I think playing at a level even the biggest optimist for Darnold could not have expected so far through Week 9.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable. I don't know if there's another word that better encapsulates what we're seeing from Sam Darnold, because we see quarterbacks all the time, get better for a season. And now Sam Darnold's case, it was a former top 5 overall pick who played unprecedentedly well in Kevin O'Connell's system with the Minnesota Vikings. But we here on this desk, along with a lot of people out there in NFL media, okay, yeah, the landing spot in Seattle, we felt it could be good, right? You and I really liked what we saw from Clint Kubiak last year as the offensive coordinator for the New Orleans Saints. And, okay, him now being the offensive coordinator in Seattle, you sort of liked that connection because he's sort of from the same tree as Kevin O'Connell. So you're like, all right, maybe the terminology, the philosophies of what he's going to be run, it's similar for him and you can expect some of that success. But to truly be able to stack years together like he had last season and then what he is having this season, it's just unbelievable from him. And it's really cool to watch. I mean, in this game, you talk about under pressure. That was the Darnold thing. His entire career before last year, and even last year, those last 2 games, last game of the regular season, first game of the playoffs for Sam Darnold, crumbled under pressure. And you go, see, they were hiding it. They were hiding it all year long, and now he's under pressure, and we saw what happened at the end of the year when he was in Minnesota. He's great under pressure this year. He's got 6 big-time throws. He's got 1 turnover-worthy play. In this game specifically, it wasn't pressured a lot. He was 3 for 3, 83.6 passing grade. Truly an exercising of demons that we have had from Sam Darnold. And it's been a lot of fun to watch. I just think it was a bad recipe as well because of how well Sam Darnold is playing this year, paired with my stat that told the story is just that the Commanders have the worst pass coverage group in the NFL. Right? I mean, it's not like, oh, it's one of the worst. Oh, they're not playing so well lately. They are the worst. They're the worst pass coverage group in the league this year. And the numbers back that up. They gave up 330 passing yards in this game. They've given up 2,413 passing yards this season. That's the most in the NFL. And they kind of have everybody out there, right? And I know Marshawn Lattimore is going to be out for the year with a torn ACL. That's not good. Trey Amos, who has played well, the rookie outside corner before this game, really struggled. Gave up over 100 yards himself in pass coverage when he was in man coverage against Jackson Smith-Njigba. It did not look good. The Commanders, independent of a lot of the other things that they have going on, independent of even Jaden Daniels' injury, his injuries prior to this where he's missed a couple of games, some offensive inconsistencies, they have never really given themselves a formula to win games because of how bad their secondary is. And this was another example of a good quarterback taking advantage of that. And I think that's, you said it was over at halftime. It's over at halftime, yes, because of Sam Darnold. But on the flip side, it's also just because they cannot cover anybody this season.
Yeah, the only other coverage unit I've seen that's close to that bad or maybe even equal is Dallas. I mean, that's when you're talking about a team that's given up 31 points a game. The Commanders are in that boat as well, and they're not one of those teams with a really good pass rush that can at least make up for some of that. There's just not enough on this defense, and there's certain games where they just don't give themselves a chance to win. And going back to Darnold real quick, I mean, look, leading the league in passing grade, leading the league in yards per attempt, tied for the league lead in big-time throws, second highest average depth of target in the league. He's attacking downfield, and again, a way faster average time to throw than last season, quicker decision-making than ever, right around 2.6 seconds per throw. It was a bad matchup. And the first thing, I was talking to somebody on a Seahawks pod during the week, and they said, okay, what's your first impression of this matchup? And I just went, I have no idea what the Commanders are going to do with Jackson Smith and Jigba. Just not a clue. With these two as hot as they are, I have no idea what they're going to do with them with their secondary. I mean, they're not capable right now of covering anything on the back end. And really, that alongside the injuries has really killed their season.
Yeah. Most impressive, most disappointing?
Darnold, for me, it's just Darnold across the board. He's just
easy
it's
answer.
just, and the defense was great. And I mean, Devin Witherspoon coming back and playing mostly on the outside, what Nicky Warry is doing in that kind of box safety role, kind of that hybrid third linebacker. Same thing we've talked about with Kyle Hamilton recently. There's a lot of guys on the defense, like Ty Okada with just the unbelievable interception on the sideline. But at the end of the day, right now, Darnold's the straw that stirs the drink. It's just unbelievable. And for most disappointing, I think it's just the racking up of these Commanders' injuries, right? I think not having Terry McLaurin for most of these games, it just killed the vertical part of their passing game. He was their one vertical threat. Sam Cosmi getting in there late, missing the first few games. Now Jaden Daniels, Marshawn Lattimore, Luke McCaffrey's now out with a broken collarbone. That further hurts the depth. There's just so many injuries on a team that, especially defensively, could not afford it. That's really what's killed this Commanders season. At 3-6, and now without all of these guys, they're pretty much shot when it comes to playoff contention.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Washington, I think the concern for them is more long-term than that, like even this season, and saying that they're sort of shot this season. Because if you guys watched the broadcast last night, you heard them bring this up multiple times, especially in the fourth quarter. This is the oldest roster in the NFL by average age by almost a full year. And if you go into who is under contract for them in 2026 and beyond, they are still the oldest team in the NFL. Now, it's close to the gap's a little bit closer, but it's not like they have a lot of veterans who, okay, they won't be on the team next year. They're going to get a lot younger. They over 27 years old, almost 28 years old, is their average age right now going into 2026. Now, we figured that that'll probably change just from draft picks and probably younger guys that they're going to want to get on the depth of the roster anyways. But speaking of draft picks, when you look at the Laramie Tunsil trade, which cost them a second and a fourth for this upcoming draft, they have a first-round pick, they have no second-round pick, they have a third-round pick, they have no fourth-round pick, and then it's a fifth-rounder, a sixth-rounder, and a seventh-rounder. So you're missing 2 picks in a second-rounder and a fourth-rounder that very clearly you need to build this team and get younger. Look, I don't want to say that I don't want to do the full hindsight game here, because when they acquired Deebo Samuel, when they acquired Marshawn Lattimore, when they got Laramie Tunsil, right? These are veterans. You are looking at the year you had last year with Jaden Daniels as a rookie, right? And I want to be fair to the Commanders here. Jaden Daniels was coming off of a sensational rookie season. You have at least 3 more years, maybe 4 with the fifth-year option, where you can play with the rest of your roster because you have the best situation in all of sports. You have a, no question about it, franchise top 10 quarterback on a rookie contract. And you have that for the next 3 years before you start to get into fifth-year options and extensions and things like that. They went all in on it. They made the playoffs last year. They're feeling themselves for the core of their roster. They're trying to add some veterans to make sure that they can go even further in the playoffs. Made it to the NFC Championship game, right? And so for me to sit here and judge some of the moves that they've had just because they haven't worked, I'm not going to do that. I liked the fact that they kept their foot on the gas pedal, especially so close to the year that Jaden Daniels had last year. But with that being said, the fact of the matter is, this team has been very poor this season. Even with some of the offensive line getting a little bit healthier, they're still poor. Jaden hasn't been as good as he was last year, and now he's dealing with that elbow injury that's going to keep him out for maybe the entire season. Marshawn Lattimore, that swing clearly did not work. Deebo Samuel, that swing did not work for them. And I don't know if Laramie Tunsil has been good at times, but his addition and presence hasn't changed and elevated the offensive line the way they've wanted to. So now you just look at a team where, again, I'm not going to totally ignore how I felt about them going all in with Jaden when they made these moves. But now you're sitting here with Jaden probably out the rest of the year, the oldest roster in the NFL this year, the oldest roster in the NFL when you get to 2026, and not a lot of draft picks to help. So it's just tough to look at where Washington is right now and feel great about the next, I would say, calendar year and a half.
No, I think I don't blame them for any of those moves and trying to go in for a championship, right? I don't have any issue with that. I think the more fun debate is going to come draft time when they're picking in the top 10. Do you take a potentially elite player in the top 10 of this coming draft, or do you trade back and you recoup some of those assets, right? And you try to build a more complete roster with more picks. I think that's going to be a debate to be had. And let's be real. They have a franchise quarterback on a rookie contract. They have more salary cap space than other teams generally would, right? That's the biggest advantage of having a quarterback on that contract is you have the financial flexibility to go and add veterans that you might need. So they're going to add more veterans and maybe just cycle through some different ones to find the right fits. But also I think that is going to be a really fun debate. We talked about it late in the first round when they were picking in this year's draft. Should they trade out of that, 29th or 30th pick that they had last year? Should they trade out of that? I think it's going to be a similar conversation, especially with as many teams need quarterbacks. Should they trade back out of the top 10, get additional assets, and then make more picks in this draft? That might make some sense too, because to me, they need an infusion of talent or depth at running back, at receiver, in the secondary, off the edge when they're pass rush. I mean, and maybe even at linebacker. Who knows if Bobby Wagner's coming back for another year, right? There's a lot of spots on this team that they need help. It's not just one or two problems. So, I really think that's going to be a consideration, and this is going to be a really fun team to talk about come draft time.
Yeah, two teams that just feel like they're going in the very opposite direction when it comes to what the rest of the year is going to look like for them. Chiefs and the Bills. That's the next game that we're going to touch on here. The Buffalo Bills defending home field against their rival in the AFC, and the Chiefs winning this game 28-21. The top 5 graded players that we had for the Buffalo Bills in this one: tight end Dalton Kincaid at the top of the list with 91.6. Cornerback Maxwell Harrison, man, they love seeing this. A 91.9, getting him back after missing most of the early part of the year with injury, certainly has been a welcome addition to a group that was really struggling for them. Edge rusher Greg Rousseau, a 91.3. Safety Cole Bishop felt like he was all over the field last night with a 79.1, and then tight end Dawson Knox, a 79.0. Josh Allen in this game an 83.1, and then on Kansas City's side of things, their linebacker Nick Bolton equally felt like he was all over the place with a 91.0. Wide receiver Marquise Brown with an 80.4. Offensive guard Kingsley Suamataia with a 75.5. Center Creed Humphrey a 73.8. And Rashee Rice rounded things out in the top 5 for him with a 72.6. Patrick Mahomes in this game a 58.7 overall PFF grade. Stat that told the story, Dalton.
So the Bills, as we know now, are a ball control offense, right? They don't have that number one top flight receiver, and they're not just going to air it out all the time like some other teams can. And this was how they had to win this football game, is winning at the line of scrimmage, controlling the pace with the run game, winning time of possession, and just in general limiting the opportunities for Patrick Mahomes to be Patrick Mahomes, right? The Bills out rushing the Chiefs 141-79 was big. They had the ball for almost 35 minutes. They only had one run play the entire night that lost yardage. That's the Bills' blueprint. We've talked about in other games that when they've looked at their best, especially last week, say against Carolina, they have run the football really well and then gotten in the play-action game, used those tight ends like Dalton Kincaid with the 100-yard day in this game. I think it all kind of racked up, and I thought Joe Brady called an outstanding game. It starts with the run game, and one thing the Bills had to do was control the Chiefs' personnel with their own. We talk about so much how good the Bills are with maybe an extra offensive lineman or multiple, two, three tight ends out there, a fullback and Quentin Morris out there, right? They got to dictate. They got in a rhythm of dictating who the Chiefs had on the field at any given time. So basically, they were in 11 personnel a lot in this game with Kincaid or Knox or even Jackson Hawes as the one tight end. But when you look at the way they condensed formations and used Khalil Shakir and even a Terrell Shavers in as run blockers, this offense in this game was run a lot like the Rams do it, say with Puka Nacua or a Jordan Whittington inserting into the box. But because they were in 11 and those guys are wide receivers, so often the Bills were running into looks where the Chiefs were in nickel and it was not Leo Chenal out there. That's really the guy more than anyone they were trying to avoid, because you could argue he's their most consistent run defender, but he's only out there in base with Bolton and Tranquil. When you get nickel, now you've got Trent McDuffie in the box in the nickel instead of Leo Chenal, and you've got better run fits. Here's what I'm getting at here, okay? The Bills' yards per carry, all right? When the Chiefs were in base or heavier fronts, basically with Leo Chenal on the field, 3.3 yards per carry. When they were in nickel and it was Trent McDuffie having a run support in there in the slot or even as kind of the third linebacker when he had to move inside in these condensed formations, 5.1 yards per carry. That creates the play action looks you want out of 11. When you get into those two tight end sets, then the Bills can start chucking it. Josh Allen 4 for 4 with 17 yards per pass against those heavier packages. I just think Joe Brady, more than anything, even more than, say, the usual physical dominance out of the offensive line that we got last week. And the offensive line was good again in this game. The Bills have one of the best O-lines in the league. But I think Joe Brady did an outstanding job of controlling Steve Spagnuolo's personnel packages, staying ahead of the chain so he couldn't get into all the blitz looks that he can get into on third down, and using just all of the different weapons in their own way that the Bills have, the tight ends, the fullback, all the receivers, the guys willing to get in the box and block and run block and do all those things. That really worked to the Bills' advantage in this game. And I thought maybe it might have been Joe Brady's best called game of the season, even though it was the Bills' usual. It was conservative, but he also picked his spots to be aggressive with the play action. And Josh Allen, 8 for 8 on play action. He just played his role perfectly in this game.
Yeah, this was – I love the way that you put it there, where the Bills were – I don't want to say like one step ahead, but it kind of felt like they were a little bit, right? Like they were ready to be one step ahead of what the Chiefs wanted to do in personnel-wise. And so we know that the Buffalo Bills are at their best when they are really operating out of just heavier personnel, right? It's not even just running the football. When they get the 2 tight end offense moving, even 3 tight ends sometimes with Jackson Hawes in there, that's when this team is really tough to beat, because if James Cook's having a good day, there's a good chance that the Buffalo Bills are going to win that football game just because they're controlling it the way that they want to. Well, if you have heavier personnel on the field for that to try to complement the run game, and yet Dalton Kincaid or Jackson Hawes or Dawson Knox can also be viable receivers in the passing game, again, that's when you become so tough to defend. And I think the first 8 weeks of the season, I wondered if, and I don't really blame Buffalo for this. One, they weren't playing the stiffest of competition. We saw that their schedule was a little bit easier to start the year. But you remember, you go back to training camp in the preseason, how much hype there was for Keon Coleman, right? And how well Keon Coleman was playing and how he was looking like a wide receiver one. Well, now we get into the regular season, and I don't mean for this to be more insulting than it has to be, but we saw the Buffalo Bills cornerbacks, especially without Maxwell Hairston, struggling. And so then you go, oh, okay, well, was Keon Coleman just beating up against Buffalo's bad corners in training camp? Because that might have been the case. In this game, Coleman has 2 targets, 2 catches, 17 yards. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't involve Keon Coleman in the offense. They absolutely should. I think he's a talented wide receiver. But I think they're realizing that sort of the way that you brought this topic up, the most efficient way to run this Buffalo Bills offense is not through Keon Coleman. And I think there were a couple of weeks where they've tried to make that the case, especially on the non-scripted drive. We talked about that over the last couple of weeks. And this was another example of, you look at the great receiving output that they had in this game. Dalton Kincaid, over 100 yards. Khalil Shakir, 8 targets, 7 catches, 43 yards. Dawson Knox had a big 30-yard catch. Elijah Moore even had a big catch. It's the diversity of the offense that really goes to Buffalo's advantage, not trying to run it just through Keon Coleman. So I think there will be a time and a place for Keon Coleman to come up with some big catches for this team down the stretch and into the playoffs of where they want to go. But I think that they are realizing, and to your point about Joe Brady, they're becoming more confident in who they are and how this offense operates best. And I think it is much more from, 1, a heavier personnel standpoint, and 2, a more diverse passing attack than trying to funnel it through one guy who you want to be your wide receiver 1. So I do agree with that, and I think that that's good that you pointed that out. The Chiefs have an early down problem, in my opinion. They don't have a dynamic player out of the backfield to be a running back. I like Brashard Smith a good amount. I know you liked him a lot pre-draft. This was kind of supposed to be the Brashard Smith game, right? No Elijah Pacheco in this one. The last time that they got Brashard Smith fully involved 2 weeks ago, I think he had over 70 combined yards rushing and receiving. He is their most explosive athlete out of the backfield with him and Kareem Hunt, and now they've activated and they're giving carries to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. When you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they were 2 for 13 on third down in this game. And we'll get to Patrick Mahomes in a second. But just 4 of their third downs out of 13 were less than 7 yards. They're just not – they are trying to make the run game just sort of an extension of the passing game and just to get people off of their back right now. They clearly don't really want to run their offense through whoever is in the backfield. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, Brashard Smith, who I don't feel like got enough looks in this game. 61.8 rushing grade on early downs. They are 25th in the most explosive runs from their running back position this season. And they only have 2 missed tackles forced from their running backs all year on early downs. 2 missed tackles forced. That, as you would expect, is dead last in the NFL. So the Chiefs are not dynamic enough in the backfield on early downs, and they're just not a threat to other teams. And because of that, you get games like the one that we just saw where Patrick Mahomes, 58.7 overall PFF grade, he had a 44% completion percentage in this game. That was the lowest single game completion percentage that he's had in his entire career. And when you go back and you watch the film of Mahomes, he is forcing the ball deep down the field. He did not look decisive. He did not look confident. There are multiple times where I'm watching him throw it deep down the field into double or triple coverage, and there is somebody open right in front of him, and he just didn't want to take it. And at that point, yeah, okay, the Buffalo Bills obviously got a decent lead, but in a couple of those instances, it was like 7-7, 7-13. Like, it's not like the score was way away from them at that point. Mahomes was pressing so hard in this game, pushing the ball deep down the field at a rate that he did not have to do. But I think he felt like he did have to do it because they don't trust how dynamic they are out of the backfield. And that's what I think was the stat that told the story on why the Bills won this game.
Those who for weeks have been clamoring for Kansas City to trade for somebody like Breece Hall, they're winning that argument right now. That's just the fact. Look, Kareem Hunt is not an explosive player anymore. Brashard Smith maybe is in space, but he's not a guy who's built like a between the tackles runner, so that doesn't help you as much on early downs. If you can get him out in space and use the screen game and get him out on outside runs and things of that nature, then he can be solid. But right now this team has a problem where they can't run the football. They're asking Patrick to do too much. You can see it for the season. 15 big-time throws, 13 turnover-worthy plays. You wonder why he's not the highest-graded quarterback in football or even one of the 5 highest-graded right now. It's because he has to use this gunslinger mentality. Some weeks it's working, some weeks it's not. That's why they're 5-4, because they do have flaws in this offense where right now the offensive tackle situation is in flux. Obviously with Josh Simmons' situation, Jawan Taylor has not been great lately. He certainly wasn't very good in this game. They're having a hard time running the football, and you mentioned it, the fact that they don't have anyone to make people miss and to make explosive runs happen. These are the teams that are winning football games right now, the ones that can run the ball, and the Chiefs are not one of them.
Yep. Most impressive for you.
I mean, Dalton Kincaid, right? I mean, you talk about these Bills tight ends, and there's other weeks where we talk about Dawson Knox in the blocking game, and Jackson Hawes blocking as a rookie, and he's a perfect fit in this offense too. But to come out here against this team and dominate the middle of the field, win those one-on-one matchups, if you're Dalton Kincaid, 6 catches, 101 yards, a 90 receiving grade. Look, the Bills don't have a number 1 receiver. In these spots, they need somebody to step up for them. Kincaid was the right guy in this game plan, especially when they were attacking the middle of the field, attacking these linebackers, and really getting the Chiefs into the personnel packages that they wanted to. Kincaid was outstanding, a perfect 158.3 passer rating when targeted in this game. This is what he can do in open space, right? And even when they're in 11 and he's that one tight end, you can put him anywhere on the field and it works, right? So I think Dalton Kincaid, obviously, as their best receiver in this game, deserves a lot of credit for what he did.
I'm going to shout out Cole Bishop for what he did in this game. I mean, it felt like
good day for Utah, huh?
He was, yeah, it's very true.
Both of them.
He was all over the field in this one. 41 coverage snaps, that was the most on the team this day. 7 tackles, most on the team. 4 forcing completions, most on the team. He only allowed 2 catches for 18 yards, and he was covering in all sorts of ways. I mean, they were asking him to fly down in man coverage and cover the flat in those quick out routes. They asked him to play one of the 3 deep rolls in a cover 6, which very clearly they wanted to play cover 6 against Patrick Mahomes in this game. And so it was some form of deep coverage, either cover 6 or 2 deep or whatever it is. And Cole Bishop was a massive part of how flexible they were because it just felt like he was all over the place. And he was somebody who 2-3 weeks ago, he was struggling this season. And, fans were, not happy with his performance and just not happy with the safety play in general from the Buffalo Bills. But this was a welcomed sight with him playing as well. Honestly, him and Maxwell Harrison, I think, were huge in this game for Buffalo. And if they're going to get to the AFC Championship game, get to the Super Bowl, win the Super Bowl. Their secondary has to play a lot better than it had the first 6-7 weeks of the season. I think these two guys playing, at least being capable of playing to this level every week, is going to give them a chance to be able to do that.
At this point, he's played, I believe, 27 snaps last week in his first game, 30 snaps in this game. I think Maxwell Harrison at this point just needs to start. They just need to start him.
Yes.
I know. They've got Tre'Davious White, Jamarcus Ingram, some other guys across from Christian Benford. Right now, they need to assess these first two games and ask themselves, can Maxwell Harrison play 50, 55 plus every week and play something close to this? If he can do that, I think he's got to start right now. He's played an excellent first two games in the NFL after recovering from the knee injury. I do think he needs to really be in and he was always going to be an X factor, right? We talked about it all offseason. They need another corner. They drafted Maxwell Harrison just for this. You really have to think about making him the starter off these two performances.
We got some people in the chat talking about Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame. They're like, imagine him on this Chiefs team.
Yeah.
How much more do you guys want to give the Chiefs?
I mean,
they're already one of the best.
They need a home run hitter, and he's the definition of it. That's for sure.
I mean, with the trade deadline's coming up tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, I think the two that you would be on the lookout for if the Chiefs are going to be targeting any running backs, Breece Hall from your New York Jets, I think that he is somebody who's on the block, and then Chuba Hubbard as well from Carolina. I don't really know if Chuba Hubbard is that on the trade block for this team, because they're 5-4. They're clearly feeling it. They want to finish this year as best they can and go into next year with a lot of momentum. They just signed Chuba Hubbard, so if you trade him, obviously you got to get out of that contract. Rico Dowdle has been the better back for them this season, but do you think that Rico Dowdle is going to be like this for the foreseeable future? Do you think that this is just going to be who Rico Dowdle is from this point in his career on? Because if you do, then I can understand wanting to move on from Chuba Hubbard. But I also like the idea of this Carolina team just being as diverse as possible on offense. And so I'm not so sure they're going to be that interested in trading him. But if they are, I think the Chiefs are one of those teams that should be called.
We'll say this, too, for the Panthers. They're half a game out of a playoff spot.
I know.
They're 5-4.
I know.
And they're playing the Saints this week. Well, we'll get to the Panthers a little bit later again in that game against the Packers, but you're right. They may not be in a mindset where they're like, why do we have to deal from our depth? And our run game is the best part of our offense right now.
Yeah, and they're going to be like, we signed Breece, or we signed Chuba Hubbard to this deal. Like, clearly we think he is worth this contract.
Sure.
So instead, now we just happen to have, because this was always going to be the case, right? Because they signed Chuba Hubbard when they still had Jonathan Brooks coming back from the ACL injury. So it's not like they signed Chuba Hubbard and they thought, oh, he's going to be like the bell cow back like Derrick Henry is or something. They always thought it was going to be a two-back system. It's just not Jonathan Brooks anymore. It's just Rico Dowdle. So I don't know. I'm not convinced that they're trading him, but we'll see. We'll see. We already got Jalen Phillips traded at the deadline, which we'll get into that when we talk about Miami and Philadelphia. But we'll see how active this trade deadline is. You mentioned the Saints. Let's talk about the Saints and the Rams. Saints traveling across the country to go to L.A. to take on the Rams. 34-10. Rams ended up winning this game. Not really close. Let's take a look at the top 5 players that the Rams had. Wide receiver Puka Nacua, who went out in this game with a chest injury. I actually did not see afterwards what they said about it.
McVay said he could have went back in and they were being cautious. They had a lead. Which seems to be an every other week thing with Nacua for as physical a style as he plays, and that happened on a jet sweep. But he says he should be relatively fine going forward.
So he's at the top of the list with a 91.6. Tight end Davis Allen right behind him an 85.4. Tight end Terrence Ferguson an 85.2. Safety Cam Kinchins with an 81.9. Then wide receiver Devontae Adams.
Devontae Parker making a comeback? Man.
Cover the draft long enough, man. All these names just flow together. 81.1 overall grade from Devontae Adams there for the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford, another great game from him, an 85.0. On the Saints side of things, safety Justin Reed is 76.5. Wide receiver Rashid Shaheed, speaking of guys who might be on the move from the trade deadline, 75.2. And then wide receiver Chris Olave right behind him is 73.1. Offensive tackle Kelvin Banks Jr. at number 4 with a 73.0. Then center Luke Fortner with a 72.7. Tyler Shuck in this game, his first full start, a 69.0. Dalton told the story.
Look, this game, we'll be honest about it, Trevor, this game wasn't fair.
Nope.
It just wasn't. This was a Rams team at home playing a obviously very vulnerable Saints team. And Tyler Shuck making his first start, honestly, didn't even really get a chance to be on the field at all because the Rams had the ball for almost 44 minutes. Just
crazy.
A dominant effort, especially offensively. 89.9 offensive grade as a team for the Rams. 30 first downs in this game, 11 explosive plays. Stafford was outstanding. Nakua was outstanding. Devontae Adams with another red zone touchdown. Kyron Williams, Blake Corum, the offensive line. I mean, just a definitive stomping. I mean, and when Stafford is protected enough, and the way that Sean McVay's been calling plays, obviously every year, but this year especially, to me, working around suspect pass protection still. This game, that's the best way I can put it. This game wasn't fair, and my most impressive guy. And look, we talked about one NFC West quarterback and Sam Darnold being an MVP candidate. Mm-hmm. The guy standing right next to him in that race, I think, is Matthew Stafford. Just unbelievable again in this game. 24-32, 4 touchdowns, 2 more big-time throws. He's just in total control right now. And all we made the joke last week about it, but what back injury? Doesn't look like it to me. The way he's throwing the ball and the way he's seeing the field, especially. I mean, he's one of these just older quarterbacks that you have that at this point is a savant at that position. He sees everything. He sees every rotation, every blitz, every guy coming or not going or whatever. I mean, it's just unbelievable season Matthew Stafford's having. You could argue the best that we've ever seen him at 37 years old. I think he's right next to Darnold in that MVP race. It could come down to those two in those 2 games head-to-head.
Yeah. This game, I think that you put it, unfortunately, correctly. It was never going to be a good game. It just was not going to be. And the Saints offense, 40 total plays in this game. What did the Raiders run the other week? 33?
They ran 30.
Okay,
40 is usually the bottom end of what you see, like 38 to 40.
Yeah,
30's a whole different outlier, but 40 is pretty bad.
So the Saints run 40 total plays in this game. They had a time of possession of 16 minutes and 7 seconds. That's, like you said, you can't even do anything on offense when that's the case.
They named Tyler Shuck the starter, and he was on the bench anyway. Jeez.
I see what you did there.
You like that?
There were only 12. Shout out the Saints Wire for this. I was reading the Saints Wire earlier while sort of gathering some information for the show. There have only been 12 games in the NFL with a shorter time of possession. The lowest was September 12th, 1999, when the Cleveland Browns possessed the ball for just 12 minutes and 11 seconds against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So that's the lowest ever.
Yeah.
And then 12th lowest ever, or 13th lowest ever, was what we just saw from the New Orleans Saints. You're just never going to win the game when that's the case. And you can't even really judge Tyler Shuck either. Like, I'm just kind of waiting to really put him under the microscope at all because, like you said, they were never going to be close in this game. My most impressive was Byron Young. I know a lot of people talk about Jared Verse on one side of the defensive line for the Los Angeles Rams, and Verse is great. He's a presence. You got to pay attention to him at all times. But Byron Young, he's not the bendiest edge rusher in the world, but man, that speed to power and even just the pound-for-pound strength that this guy has. He had an above 70 pass rush grade and run defense grade in this one. Had some really nice reps as a pass rusher where he was attacking the outside shoulder. He is getting that dip and rip move down pretty well, and it's becoming pretty second nature to him. So anytime that he gets off the line of scrimmage with a really good jump and he gets even with the outside shoulder of the offensive tackle, you will see him dip down and you will see him rip that arm up to just try to stay clean and get into the backfield, use his other hand to affect the quarterback, to force a fumble, to start a sack, whatever that is. So I think Byron Young, a lot of offensive lines are paying attention to Jared Verse, and they should. But we have seen time and time again that when you dedicate resources or slide protection or whatever it is to Jared Verse's side, if Byron Young's one-on-one, he can make you pay too. And I think this was another game where he had some one-on-one opportunities, and he made the New Orleans Saints offensive line pay.
Byron Young and Jared Verse are number 11 and 12 among qualified edge defenders in pass rush grade right now. You got 2 of the top 12 sitting there on top of everybody else you have to deal with. Kobe Turner, Braden Fisk, Poona Ford, Josiah.
Safeties are playing well.
Josiah Stewart rotates in there. I mean, they have so many guys on that defensive line. The linebackers have been good. Cam Kinchins, you mentioned. Right. They're traded for more cornerback help. I mean, this Rams defense really does have everything, but it starts with, once again, we say it all the time, just an outstanding defensive line. The emergence of Byron Young, though, you're right, has made them even more dangerous than ever.
Most disappointing, Saints corners just could not contain Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Very few can. but it was just not a great day from Alontae Taylor or Kool-Aid McKinstry. I believe both of them had below 45.0 coverage grades on the day, and so I think that's just most disappointing because the Saints want to play aggressive in coverage. They draft these guys. They have faith in these guys to at least hold their own a little bit better than what they were able to do against the Rams.
Yeah, it just seems like their defense in general doesn't travel well. And really, we've talked about this with this Saints team. Seems like Brandon Staley's unit, they play a lot better at home. We've seen them play solid games and keep them in games, especially at home. But when they go on the road, 44 they gave up at Seattle, 31 in Buffalo, 26 to the Bears in kind of an uglier game, and then 34. It just doesn't seem to travel as well with these young players.
The Jacksonville Jaguars defeated the Las Vegas Raiders in Las Vegas. Thrilling game, 30-29 in overtime. The final few seconds of overtime is when the Raiders scored, and they decided to go for two. They decided to go for the win. And Pete Carroll, I respect you so much for that because I hate ties. I hate saying the record here on this show.
And
win,
won.
loss, and won. And the Raiders were at a point in their season where it's like, hey, we got to go for wins. I loved it. Even though it did not work out, I love this decision for Pete Carroll. And it feels like that's the right one to make when you're representing your team. You gave yourself a chance to go for it. It's one play, go get the win. They obviously did not, but I do like the decision to go for it there. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded players that we had for Jacksonville as the winners of this game across the country for this road game. Wide receiver Parker Washington, an 80.7. Cornerback Monteric Brown with a 78.3. Offensive tackle Cole Van Lannon with a 75.8. Offensive tackle Anton Harrison is 73.7. And then offensive tackle Walker Little a 71.9. Trevor Lawrence in this game a 73.4. On the Raiders side of things, much to Dalton's chagrin because he was facing Brock Bowers in fantasy. Mm-hmm. Brock Bowers at the top of the list with a 93.6 overall grade. Defensive tackle Adam Butler 72.3. Cornerback Eric Stokes a 70.9. Offensive guard Dylan Parham a 69.3. And then offensive guard Jackson Powers Johnson, a 67.7. Geno Smith in this game threw 4 touchdown passes, I believe. 70.1 overall grade. Dalton Seth told the story.
I just want to throw it out there for Van Lannon, too. 10 snaps filling in. He's listed as a tackle, obviously, but 10 snaps filling in for Ezra Cleveland at left guard and 18 snaps as an eligible tight end, their highest graded run blocker in this game, Jacksonville. Yeah. So obviously I've talked before about them missing Brenton Strange, so get a 6 offensive lineman out there and you run block a little bit better. I know you're going to talk about that part. I mean, this game was weird, though. This was a weird Jekyll and Hyde game where we had a 6-3 game at halftime, and then you just had an offensive explosion from both teams in the second half, especially from Jacksonville. 27 points, a 0.333 EPA per play in the second half after a negative EPA per play in the first half. They held the ball for 24 and a half minutes in the second half in overtime combined. It just felt like they just found the rhythm. I think especially on early downs with the run game, with the play action passing game. Trevor Lawrence getting over a really bad interception in the first half to find his rhythm in the second half, especially with Parker Washington there on the outside, filling in for Travis Hunter as the number 2 guy really in this offense, with Hunter being out for a while. I just think that's what you got is this Jags offense. Finally, there's been times in the last few weeks where it feels like the rhythm kind of comes and goes. I thought Liam Cohen, especially on early downs with the play calling, did a nice job of keeping him on schedule on early downs. Travis Etienne with another big day is really the engine of this offense, and Lawrence made enough throws. And tell you what, they just made one more play than the Raiders did at the end of it, right? I mean, you just had one of those games that went down to the wire and even past it, and Jacksonville found a way to pull it off.
Yeah, and unlike games in the past where we've complained about the Jags abandoning the run game, because I think that this team is at its best when it truly is balanced and they're able to continue to run the football. I think it was, what was the London game? Who did they play in the London game?
The Rams.
Yes, yeah. where that game got away from them very quickly, and so they totally abandoned the run game. And when you become one-dimensional, you just become so much easier to defend. And in this game, they didn't really have that scenario where there were times when they were behind on the scoreboard, right? Jacksonville, or the Raiders were up 6-0, and then they were up 6-9. Then they were up 16-13. Then they were up 23-20. Like, this was a back and forth battle here. So, but they were never really more than one possession out of it. And so you allowed yourself to stay balanced, and they absolutely did. And I think that was to their advantage. Their time of possession in this game. Did you see this, Dalton? Do you see what the time of possession was in this game?
I know the second half they just dominated it. What was it for the whole game?
Now, obviously, overtime goes into this as well, but 42 minutes, 57 seconds, almost 43 minutes they had the ball here. Now, the Raiders, it's not like, because again, overtime goes into this, so the Raiders were right at 26 minutes and 47 seconds, so that wasn't terrible for them. But the Jags were absolutely dominating how they were controlling this game, and it was because of the run game. When you would look at what they were able to do on the ground, 32 total carries in this game from their running backs, I believe. 15 first downs on the ground. That is just that's to me, it's just always going to be a recipe for the Jags having whatever the best version of their offense is going to be that game. That's going to yield the best results, is how they were able to control the ball on the ground, stay balanced. I mean, the final stats that we had here was Travis Etienne, 22 carries, 84 yards. Bashal Tootin, 9 carries, 29 yards. Trevor Lawrence, 9 carries, 24 yards. LaQuint Allen had 1 carry for 10 yards. De'Ami Brown even got a carry for 4 yards. So they were staying diverse, and they had a heavy volume when it came to the run game. And so that's it. I don't need to say more words on it. I feel like I'm just kind of like bouncing around it now at this point. They stuck true to what their identity was. They didn't go away from it, even in a back-and-forth battle. And to me, that's why they were able to come away victorious.
To your point, they've won their 5 games with the 5 highest rushing grades of the season, and they've lost the 3 with their 3 lowest rushing grades. This run game right now with Trevor Lawrence at times still inconsistent, especially with downfield accuracy. The run game and Travis Etienne has been the key, and I think it really was a great adjustment from Liam Cohen to get Cole Van Lanen, the 6th offensive lineman, out there for a lot of snaps at tight end, right? And you look
Makes
at
sense.
3 of the 4 highest graded run blockers for the Jags in this game. And I've talked about this with this team before. It was Cole Van Lanen, 6 offensive lineman out there, extra eligible tight end. It was Johnny Munt, who's a good run blocker. And it's Hunter Long, right? And Brenton Strange was one of the highest graded run blockers in the league when he was healthy. So I think the fact that those tight ends are blocking so well and they're getting 6, 7, 8 guys up into the line of scrimmage blocking well, kind of like we talk about with the Bills and their multiple tight end sets, you have a team that allows Travis Etienne to bounce when he needs to. They're dominant between the tackles on days like this, and that balance is what Liam Cohen wants in his offense.
Most impressive for me was Brock Bowers. It has to be. He was the best player on either team. 13 targets, 12 catches, 132 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, 92.9 receiving grade.
It was Bowers against the world, man.
It really was. It really was. And
me, against me.
And you.
Yes.
And it was Brock Bowers
Feels
against
good.
you. He was unbelievable this game. The offense is night and day different when he is out there. We've seen in the games where he's not been able to play through injury. They just don't have anyone else. They don't have anyone else that they can really lean on. And I think they were really hoping that Action Genty could be that for them in this rookie season. And I'm not saying that Genty has been bad, but the run game as a whole for Las Vegas has not been as consistent as it is needed to be, whether it was a bad Genty week or a bad offensive line week or like whatever it is. Complementary, the passing game and the run game, it has not been there for them. And so it's just such a stark difference when Brock Bowers is out there versus when he is not. And he gave them a chance to win this game, even up until the very end, that 3rd touchdown coming in overtime.
True, and to Genty's credit, he also adds to the passing game. He was their 2nd leading receiver and had a touchdown. The 1 touchdown Bowers didn't have was Genty. To me, and they may even trade away Jacoby Myers here in the next 24 hours, but to me, it's just this is a team lacking a number 1 receiver. Their number 1 receiver is Brock Bowers. And you mentioned it too with the struggles in the run game. They're just not able to have the balance and control the pace of the game. But Bowers is so good, clear top 5, if not top 3 tight end in the NFL, that these are the games he can have for you, and he can keep you in these types of football games.
Most impressive and most disappointing?
I mean, most impressive. Listen, Trev, we saw the longest regular season field goal ever. After we saw the longest preseason field goal ever from Cam Little, let's give some love to the special teamers, man. Cam Little hits all 6 of his kicks on the day and an NFL record 68-yard field goal before the end of the half. And honestly, we have the 0 to 2 scale here for at PFF with the grades. For this kick, we actually just had to break it and go ahead and give him a 2.5. I mean, honestly, a 68-yard kick, and it would have been good from further. What, 70 to 72? He had a 70 in the preseason, and this one would have been good from 70 for sure.
I think it would have been good from 72. Yeah, I do.
94.4 field goal grade. Yeah, we have that sort of thing. 94.4 field goal grade. Highest of this week, 2nd highest of the entire season. There was a day where your guy, Chase McLaughlin, for the Bucs had just
3 50-yard field goals, right? Was that it?
Was that the game against Philly? There was whatever he hit against Philly. I think he had a 60-yarder in that game as well.
Maybe.
I think it was that game that was higher. He had like Little was at 94.4. I think McLaughlin was right at a 95 or something like that. So he had the second best kicking day and set an NFL record 68-yard field goal. Give some credit to the kicker here on this show.
Not bad. Most disappointing?
The linebackers. You mentioned the run game. The linebackers for the Raiders have been an issue all season. And once again, Jamal Adams was their highest graded linebacker. But the guys who play more often, Devin White and Landon Roberts, both with run defense grades under 35, really struggling to contain that run game from Jacksonville.
All right, before we get on to the next game, parenting, folks. Filled with all sorts of high-pressure decisions. It can be difficult to tell if you made the right choice for your kid's future. But here's a simple decision that you can make today that could have a meaningful impact on your kid's future. That's opening up a UGMA Kids Investment Account from Fabric to start their investing journey. Gives them a financial head start. Fabric by Gerber Life. It was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kids investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Funds can be used for nearly anything while you have this account. When they're younger, maybe you're dipping into it to help them with tuition, books, summer camp activities, sports, after-school activities, whatever that looks like. And then when they're adults, maybe you're helping them buy a first car, get their first house, start a business, whatever that looks like. The whole thing is online. Very easy to set up an account. Could take you as little as just 5 minutes. You get started investing with as little as $1 a day. And then you just manage your child's account and monitor those investments right from your phone. There's no contribution limits on it. It's got multiple tax advantages. It's all SIPC insured up to $500,000. There's no commission fees to it. It's just that low, flat monthly maintenance fee. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFNFL. That's meetfabric.com/PFFNFL, MEET fabric.com/PFFNFL. The portfolios are managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Cleaning Corporation. All investing is subject to risk. You can learn more at meetfabric.com. Broncos and the Texans. We figured this would probably be a little bit of a slugfest here, and it was to the very end. The Broncos kick a field goal as time expires. 18-15 final score here. The Broncos win this game. The Broncos' top 5 graded players that we had in this one: safety Talanoa Hufanga with an elite 91.3 overall grade. Linebacker Dre Greenlaw right behind him, a 90.1. Look at that. 2 free agents coming in, playing a big role. Love to see that. Defensive tackle Zach Allen at number 3 with an 81.3. Offensive guard Quinn Miners, 78.6. Offensive tackle Garrett Bowles is 78.5, and then quarterback Bo Nix with a 67.5. On Houston side of things, their safety Kalen Bullock with an 82.7. Edge rusher Will Anderson, number 2 with an 82.0. Edge rusher Danielle Hunter at 78.6. Cornerback Derek Stingley Jr. at 78.4. Tight end Dalton Schultz with a 75.7. And then Davis Mills, who was the quarterback who came in for C.J. Stroud, who got hurt with a concussion, taking a really hard hit in the second quarter of that game. 43.2. I didn't see anything concrete on what was the long-term status of C.J. Stroud after this game. Obviously, D'Amico Ryans was talking afterwards, and he wanted an unnecessary roughness penalty. He felt like his quarterback was giving himself up, and he took an unnecessary shot, especially one of that magnitude. But obviously left the game with a concussion, did not return. It's something that I'm sure that they will have to monitor for at least the entirety of this week before their upcoming game. But I didn't see anything about him missing multiple weeks for sure or anything like that.
He's in the protocol. He's just going to go through the steps, and however long that takes, it takes.
Staff that told the story for you, Dalton.
Look, we are just going to get the Auburn Tigers version of Bo Nix this year. That's just what's going to happen. I guess Sean Payton.
I think he's a little better than that.
Well, better, but also the high variance.
I see what you're saying.
The high variance version of that.
It is the much higher variance version.
Once again, for 3 quarters, it was ugly. Now, against this Texans defense, there is a little more leniency because they are arguably the best pass defense in the entire league. They're arguably the best defense in the entire league with all the studs that they have. But Bo Nix through the first 3 quarters, a 53.7 passing grade, 9 of 21 for 97 yards. Bit up and down, but when it matters most in the fourth quarter, when he needs to get just enough done to win a ball game, he got it done. 78.1 passing grade in the fourth quarter, 9 of 16, 76 yards and a touchdown. Also 3 carries for 36 yards. The big scramble at the end that really got them into field goal range. And I think at this point, this is just what we've come to expect from the Broncos is, there's a roller coaster. It might look a little ugly. It's going to take a while for them to find the rhythm. And yet in the fourth quarter, Bo Nix keeps getting it done. The defense gets enough stops to make it happen, and they were certainly at an advantage here with Davis Mills playing most of this game and struggling, and the Texans being unable really to run the football. But once again, Bo does enough, and you know what? That's gotten this team to 7-2, and they're 2 games clear of first place, and they're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, it's funny because you're right. Knicks can just do so many different things for you, right? And that's both the good and the bad. The previous 2 weeks, they score 44 points, 33 points. And then if you go back 3 weeks, it's that New York Jets game where they score 13 and win. In this game, they score 18 and win. And so I think it is actually a compliment that the Broncos are able to win in so many different ways against so many different teams. Now, it doesn't always look as in control and as pretty as you would want, but the fact of the matter is they are sitting here at 7-2. They feel pretty good about where they're at. And if you want to say, well, they probably shouldn't have won. What was it, the Jets game where it felt like they were trying to lose that game. So you could say, well, if they were playing anybody else other than the Jets, they would have lost that day. Well, that's true. They also kind of should have beat the Colts when they were in Indianapolis. So if you even want to flip-flop those two things, I think the record is the same here.
And they had no business really winning the Giant game, but it is what it is. All 33 of those points in the fourth quarter, right?
That one was I don't know about no business winning that game, but what a roller coaster that was. I do agree with you, though, is that Knicks is just really hot and cold. And that's also my stat that told the story here, is that when Bo Nix is hitting the throws that he is supposed to hit, not even the high completions above expectation throws that we've seen him make, if he is playing on script and he's hitting the throws that he should hit, this team has the capabilities of scoring 20, 30 points and winning almost every single week. But when he is throwing on the run and the fundamentals break down and he's missing wide open throws and the chemistry is off with his wide receivers, like it can look really ugly. But if you're a Broncos fan, you have to feel good about where you're at, knowing that if this is now the new baseline for sort of where you're at as a team, you got to feel good about how you're going to continue to improve this offseason, knowing that the Chiefs are getting a little bit older in certain positions, and there are times when the Chiefs obviously look as dominant, and hey, maybe the Chiefs end up winning this division when it's all said and done, but you are obviously lessening the gap between where the Chiefs are at the top of this division and anybody else. I think the Chargers, if they're fully healthy, are a team that's capable of competing at the top. I think the Broncos are as well. So it's not just, it's Kansas City and then whoever else is in that division. I think at the very least, even if they don't win the division in the end, which they've got a decent lead here, so they got to feel pretty good about it, you feel pretty good about making the playoffs and potentially getting to win a playoff game and set the table for what could be next season with an even better roster. But yeah, it was one of those stories where it looked really ugly for the first 2-3 quarters, and then all of a sudden, boom, it looks great for this team, and they come back and they win it in the end. And this is tough. It's tough to go into Houston and play this defense. And so I think that you're right saying, hey, you got to give them a little bit of grace because this is one of the best defenses in the NFL, and I would agree with you completely.
Yeah, I would rather struggle in the first 3 quarters and get it done in the fourth than the other way around. I mean,
sure.
If you look at the stat that sticks out for this team, in the first 3 quarters of games, they're tied for 19th in points scored this year. In the fourth quarter, they're second behind the Green Bay Packers. And I was looking at offensive grade right now, actually. First 3 quarters of games, they are 23rd in the league in offensive grade as a team. So it's not just Bo, it's really this entire team. 23rd in the first 3 quarters. I'm pulling up the fourth quarter right now, just giving it a second here, but I'm sure it wouldn't shock me at all if it's somewhere in the top 5 once this pops up. But certainly the ability to finish games, and look, you mentioned it, we've talked at times about Denver and their offensive flaws and needing to get in better rhythm, and I'm sure Sean Payton says it. He would love to probably play better in the first and second quarter every single week, but 7-2, you're tied for the best record yet, 5th in the league in offensive grade. They go from 23rd in the first 3 quarters to 5th in the league, a top 5 offense in the fourth quarter of these games. Again, look, and we've seen teams in the past all the time that have success in the first quarter and then drop off. I'm sure Sean Payton wouldn't trade those numbers for the record that he has right now.
Zach Tantillo in the chat saying, so he's clutch?
I mean, yeah. So through 9 games, he is.
We got it. We got it, Zach. We got it out of him. We got it out of him, ZT.
Yeah, well, you know the Auburn homer in him is going to get on us every week. You already know.
My most impressive in this game was Kalen Bullock. I thought he looked great. Had the interception in this game. Kalen Bullock is somebody who is such a fascinating prospect, right? He's somebody who was as boom or bust as it gets when he was at USC. He would play that free safety, single high safety role where He's got great range, great ball skills, led the country in interceptions for a good portion of when he was a starter there at USC. The tackling was horrendous when he was in college, and it's gotten a little bit better with him in the NFL. It really has, but he still gives you that single high ability to go up and get the ball. There was an interception, I believe it was a target to Courtland Sutton, where Nix was trying to force it deep down the field to him because, to be honest, I believe at that point in the game, Courtland Sutton was seeing a lot of Derek Stingley Jr., and Stingley actually was in coverage on the 30-yard touchdown to Courtland Sutton. And so he gave up the touchdown, and he still had a pretty good PFF grade because of how well he played the rest of the game when there were throws his direction, when there weren't throws his direction. He was playing Courtland Sutton pretty tight in one of those spots where I think Nix was saying, like, I got to get Sutton going deep down the field. We got to connect here. He saw him with a little bit of an opening. He threw it up to the sideline, and Bullock was able to get from his center field roll all the way to the sideline to intercept it. So he continues to be one of the better true free safeties in the NFL when you go to single high situations, and so I thought that really showed up today. That was pretty impressive.
Through a year and a half, he's got 7 interceptions and 6 pass breakups now, and you mentioned that you could argue in last year's draft he was the best single high safety. In that role that he can play, he can be really good at times and make plays on the ball, game-changing plays on the ball. I'll go with a safety on the other side who is basically the exact opposite in style from Kalen Bullock. Talanoa Hufanga was just all over the place. 83 run defense grade with 2 run stops, 2 coverage stops. Only allowed 3 catches for 5 yards as the primary defender in coverage. This is by far the best game that he's played, the most comfortable he has looked in a Denver Bronco uniform. And really that defense, especially the run defense, was a big reason that Denver continued to stay in this game and then win it, even though they had to come from behind again. And my most disappointing, the Texans' run game. Look, you got to be able to run the football better when your backup quarterback is out there. 25 design carries for just 58 yards, no explosive runs, and just 1 yard before contact. Davis Mills was not going to be able to put the game on his shoulders against this defense with Hufanga playing like that. The linebackers, Dre Greenlaw's starting to really look good again as he's getting healthier. The defensive line obviously is really good with Nick Benito and Zach Allen and those guys, but the Texans needed to run the football better. Talanoa Hufanga was a big reason that their offense, especially in the second half, couldn't function very well.
Yeah, the run game is tough for the Texans because
it is what it is.
Mixon's been out the whole year, and they would have never expected Mixon to be out like this, and he's now missed 8 games, and I don't think there's any sign of him returning. I haven't read anything. Maybe Texans fans can let us know in the comments if there's been anything from Mixon, but I haven't seen anything. It's almost like they're operating as if he's just not going to play this year. And going into this season, I don't think they were intending on Nick Chubb or Woody Marks or whoever it has been leaning on them as much. And so yeah, that's unfortunate. To me, the most disappointing is just simply the Stroud injury, because Stroud over the last, I would say, 2 weeks has really started to play a little bit better. I think this offensive line has started to play a little bit better, and it just was a bummer that he went out in this game, because I think it would have been fireworks to the end and probably even a little bit higher scoring, because I think this offense would have had a little bit higher of a ceiling if he's in the whole rest of the game. So obviously we hope that Stroud is okay long term. We hope that he's back out there pretty quickly, because he is still one of the most exciting and fun quarterbacks to watch in this league.
On Joe Mixon, Nick Caserio recently said that he's it's going to take another 3 to 4 weeks, and this was a while back that he said that. Actually, I think it was pretty recent that he said this. Another 3 to 4 weeks before they even have any clearer of a timetable. So I think there is a real chance that he's just not going to play this year with whatever this foot injury is that he suffered in the offseason. And it's at that point, I mean, you have Woody Marks in there, and Nick Chubb's obviously been playing as well. And it's just the offensive line was always going to make the run game a weakness for Houston anyway. But the lack, Marks has given him flashes, and I think he can be a solid committee back moving forward into the future. But they got to find themselves a workhorse moving forward.
49ers and the Giants. The Niners win this game 34-24, a game that 10-point game doesn't really feel close in the end, but like it felt even further away than that. It just didn't really feel like the Giants had a whole lot going for them in this game, especially with the way that Christian McCaffrey was playing in this game. Top 5 graded players that we have for the San Francisco 49ers in this one. A lot of offensive linemen here at the very top for the San Francisco 49ers. I talked about Christian McCaffrey and what he was able to do. We'll break that down in a little bit, but man, the offensive line, we got to give them credit as well. Number 1 on the list, offensive guard Dominic Pooney, an 89.4. Offensive tackle Colton McKivitz, an 83.9. Trent Williams, a 77.7. Cornerback Renardo Green at number 4 with a 76.2. Tight end George Kittle, a 74.9. Mac Jones in this game, a 62.3. And then on the Giants side of things, their edge rusher Brian Burns, He played very well in this game, an 89.9. Offensive guard Greg Von Roten with a 87.1. Number 3, offensive tackle Andrew Thomas, an 85.6. Running back Devin Singletary, trying to pick things up with no Cam Scatterbo in the lineup anymore, a 71.8. Offensive tackle Marcus Bowe with a 67.5. And then Jackson Dart in this game is 75.0. I think that he did what he could in this game. It just feels as though the Giants are just a little too depleted on the offensive side of the ball right now. But what's the stat that told the story for you?
No, I mean, this was just as clean an operation, I think, from start to finish as, once again, that Kyle Shanahan could ask for, especially with Mac Jones making another start instead of Brock Purdy. You just look at this team. Highest offensive grade of the year as a team for San Fran, 81.7. Highest EPA per play of the year. They really controlled things with their run game. It was the second highest run rate of the year for them at 55%, 159 rushing yards, 33 minutes of time of possession, 4 for 5 in the red zone. I think just everything about this offense in this game went the way that Kyle Shanahan wanted it. They didn't even have to attempt a deep ball. They're not going to do that and force it with Mac Jones. He's gotten very used to now in these starts with Mac Jones as his quarterback, the way that he has to call these games. Jones gets rid of the football quickly at a 78 passing grade in a clean pocket. A lot of that is because he gets rid of the football, and the Giants have a really talented defensive line. But aside really from the Brian Burns strip sack at the end of the first half, this was, I don't want to say a perfect day for San Fran's offense, or for their entire offensive unit, I should say, but it's pretty darn close.
They weren't really stressed a lot in this game.
They weren't. Other than the strip sack from Brian Burns on that, I mean, that was really the only time, and then the Giants missed the field goal right after that. Other than that, I think Kyle Shanahan got everything that he wanted in this game when he was drawing up the blueprint for this one.
I agree. A stat that told the story for me, and sort of the way that I was talking about the Giants before you started talking there about the Niners, there's just not a lot to lean on for them right now. Jackson Dart, leading rusher on this team. Jackson Dart ended up finishing this game with 8 rushing attempts. Was tied for most on the team with Devin Singletary. 56 rushing yards. He had that 1 rushing touchdown. Devin Singletary had 8 carries for 43 yards. And then Tyrone Tracy, man, I was a little bit worried about this with Tyrone Tracy becoming the full-time back, because I think we were talking about this in the preview show. Maybe it was last week that we were talking about this for the preview show. I went back and I watched a lot of Tyrone Tracy's carries this year when he's been healthy and he's been out there, because he's missed a little bit of time. But he does not look nearly as confident and decisive as Cam Scatterbo did. And when I watched it, I tried to see, like, okay, well, are they going to lean more into an outside zone rushing scheme? Are they going to continue to do things between the tackles? Like, what are they going to do now that Cam Scatterbo is not in there and they're going more to Tyrone Tracy? And whether it was zone blocking schemes or more of power, man, and gap scheme blocking concepts, Tyrone Tracy looked a lot more hesitant. And I think that we saw that here in this game with 5 carries and 18 yards. Is they just don't have a very confident and dynamic running back like they had with Cam Scatterbo. And that just, it sucks, but this is where the Giants currently are. And so Jackson Dart, I will give him all the credit in the world. He's trying. Now, it's not perfect from him, but given the full context, with him being a rookie who didn't even start the first 3 games of the season, where they're at, like, he's doing the best he can. I actually am totally fine with the way that Jackson Dart is playing right now. He's giving the Giants a chance to at least have the best offensive day that they can. I just don't think that they have a lot of firepower right now. Darius Slayton has not been as reliable as they have wanted him to be. Wan'Dale Robinson has, but he is a low average depth of target type of a player. He had 11 targets, 9 catches, but just 46 yards. His long was just 9 yards in this game. When it came to 9 catches, that's just a really short output for the longest catch to be for less than 10 yards. The rest of it's sort of tight end and running back sprinkles here and there, but the Giants just don't have enough. And I think that's really just the stat that told the story to me, and it's fully encapsulated with Jackson Dart being the leading rusher on this team. They just don't have enough without Malik Neighbors and Cam Scatterbo.
No, he's their best offensive player. You look at the last 4 games. I know they're 2-2 in those 4 games, but 9 big-time throws and only 2 turnover-worthy plays. I think that's what would encourage me the most about Jackson Dart. After a tough first start, I should say second start against the Saints, where they were turning the ball over, he really has been good with the ball security the last 4 games, and that's still given the Giants a chance to win these games. But you're right. You lose your best rusher, you lose your best receiver, especially on a team with no real receiving depth. That's going to hurt you. But I think Dart still playing well through that is obviously very encouraging. I don't think the offensive line was terrible in this game. I just think you're right. Without those 2 guys, you're very short on skill players and dynamic guys who can make big plays happen with the ball in their hands.
Yeah, Impressive and disappointing?
I think to me that offensive line, you saw those highest graded players there. Colton McKivitz, outstanding. Dominic Pune there. They're on the right side with him. Trent Williams, as always, because he just doesn't age, right? I mean, the offensive line dominated this game. Highest PFF grade as a unit of the season. Highest run blocking grade, an 88 run blocking grade as a unit. That doesn't even count George Kittle and Luke Farrell making all the blocks that they do in the run game as well. And 4 of the 5 starting offensive linemen with at least a 75 grade, especially against this Giants defensive line with so many great players. You couldn't ask for any better from your front 5 if you're Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, I love McCaffrey's day, right? And I'm not just trying to like cherry pick on the stats, because we saw that he wasn't one of the top 5 graded players that we had, because he wasn't specifically asked, I think, to do a lot of individually difficult things in the run game, because the offensive line, in my opinion, was blocking so well. But still, 173 total yards, 34 total touches, 2 total touchdowns. I mean, just from a volume perspective, I think he's the most impressive, because the 49ers have, whether it's been out of the backfield or with their tight ends or their wide receivers, even their quarterbacks, obviously, they have had players in and out of their lineup the entire season. And McCaffrey has had to be a constant for them as both a rusher and a receiver. This was a day where, was it the most efficient or explosive he's ever been as a dual option type of a player in the offense? No, and we saw that again with his grade not being in the top 5 there. But volume alone, I want to give him his kudos because of how much they are having to lean on him. And he, at least, if the ceiling was not as high in this game, the floor certainly was, and he was the reason why they were able to keep this offense on schedule.
I mean, the only thing you maybe worry about, especially coming off of last year where he didn't play much, is the sheer volume. He leads the NFL in carries right now,
right? And
he is second among all players behind Jamar Chase in receptions. 61. He has the same number of catches as Puka Nacua. Tied for second among all players, which just feels ridiculous to me. So
wow.
you do. It's the only thing I might worry about a little bit is the burnout of it. But he's certainly, the fact that no matter who the quarterback is and no matter what the other injuries have been, that Kyle Shanahan has run this offense through Christian McCaffrey. He's going to continue to do it for as long as he can, because that defense just keeps suffering more injuries. And now they may have lost Mykel Williams for the season now, too, to a torn ACL.
It looks like they did. Yeah, I think I saw the early reports on that. I didn't see anything this morning. I didn't search anything this morning. But the Niners were a team that has been in talks for an edge rusher. Now that Jalen Phillips has been traded to the Philadelphia Eagles, it seems as though the Bengals won't really budge on their first-round pick for Trey Hendrickson thing, so I don't think that they're going to end up moving him, but I'm sure the Niners have inquired about him. Bradley Chubb is probably somebody else that they have talked with the Dolphins about to get him over. Either the guys for the Jets, mainly Jermaine Johnson, I think, is somebody who they've talked about on the trade block, and reuniting him with Saleh. You would know better than me if Saleh was a fan of Jermaine Johnson. I feel like he was, but I think they'll be on the looks for an edge rusher even before the Mykel Williams injury. I felt like that could have been the case.
Well, and they got Keon White one already too from
New
England,
right.
But they could be another one if they feel like, okay, now that Mykel, because now the idea was, okay, you were going to have Keon and you still had Mykel healthy, and once again this MetLife turf gets somebody, but the Niners are used to that. But I think it still could be a situation where they could look for even interior guys wherever across that defensive line. They need help.
Okay, we haven't. When's the Bengals game? When are we talking the Bengals game? All right, we're going to talk about the Bengals game next.
Skip ahead to it.
We're going to skip ahead to it next because we got a super chat here, a $10 super chat from Ben, which we appreciate it, Ben. Thank you. Said Unk, meaning Joe Flacco.
Oh yeah.
For all the kids out there, actually the not kids out there, so I'm actually explaining that term to, is putting up MVP level stats. Career day, 109.4 passer rating. More than 470 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, with his arm falling off, and we still lose because we couldn't get 50+. At this point, either let that man rest or get some new, I believe he means defensive personnel there for the Cincinnati Bengals. Let's talk about the Bengals. The Bengals and the Bears, what a shootout this one was. What was the final score of this one? 47-42.
Well, I'm doing a scoregami check on that. There's no way we've had that before, right?
It feels like it could very well be scoregami.
Find that.
The Chicago Bears win this game. While you're looking that up, the top 5 graded players that we had from the Chicago Bears, offensive tackle Darnell Wright was an absolute ass kicker in this game. 94.1 overall grade. Offensive guard Jonah Jackson, a 91.1. Edge rusher Austin Booker, a 90.0. Tight end Colson Loveland, the breakout game. Anybody who listened to the PFF NFL show last Wednesday can't be too shocked about that. I called that one out. Matchup against the linebackers and the safeties did not look promising for the Cincinnati Bengals, and guess what? He was not. Figured Colson Loveland would have a big day, and he did. Center Drew Dahlman, an 84.8. Quarterback Caleb Williams, a 90.8. Is that the best single game grade Caleb's had in the NFL? Gotta be.
Might be.
90.8?
I can check that too.
Gotta
That might be the best.
Cincinnati Bengals on the Bengals side of things, wide receiver T. Higgins with a 90.2. Offensive guard Dylan Fairchild, 72.9. Center Ted Karras with a 69.7. Jamar Chase with a 67.8. Edge rusher Joseph Osai, a 67.6. And then quarterback Joe Flacco, a 79.9.
So that is the first 90 of Caleb Williams' career, highest graded game of his career.
There we go.
Strangely, I have two other 47 to 42 games. We never had one until 2020. All three of these games involve a team from Ohio losing. 2020, the Ravens beat the Browns 47-42. The guys behind the glass are going to love this. The Chargers in 2021 beat the Browns 47-42. And then the Bears beat the Bengals 40. So all three of them, teams from Ohio, are 0-3 in 47 to 42 games. And they're all within the last 6 years. It's very
impressive
strange
stuff.
Yeah.
Stat that told the story. What do you got?
The guys back there are very, very mad at me. Okay, so before the last 4 minutes where this game devolved into utter chaos, the story for me, and the story going into it, a lot of this for me was which of these two teams, or maybe both of them, was going to run the football well, right? Last week against the Ravens, the Bears struggled, but the couple weeks before that, they looked really good with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai. Swift out for this game. Monangai had a huge game. The Bengals had been hot lately with Chase Brown and Samaje Perine on the ground the last couple weeks. One team kept that going, the Bears. The other one, the Bengals, did not. The rushing difference, 283 yards for the Bears. I believe it was 176 from Kyle Monangai, I think it was, and only 46 rushing yards for the Bengals. At a point where this game was 41-27, and Tremaine Edmonds had got what he thought was a pick six, but was just an interception. He was ruled down by contact. The Bears' decisive edge in the run game was the difference in the game. Rushing grade almost 30 points higher. Run blocking grade 25 points higher. The Bears with a 91 run blocking grade as a team. I think that's just what you're seeing from the Bears right now, is that when they've gotten this offensive line going in recent weeks, Drew Dahlman and those guys up front are blocking, especially in the zone game, really well. How about the way that Kyle Monangai ran? Because as we saw at Rutgers, all he does is run angry every single carry. That's all he ever does.
It's my favorite trait of any running back.
Just pissed off.
Just running really pissed off.
That's Kyle Monangai to a T, and he's a 5'8" bowling ball doing it for sure. So, I mean, he took full advantage of his opportunity. He's going to get more touches. And then Caleb Williams as a scrambler as well, 5 carries for 53 yards. The Bengals had nothing on him. So I just think before all the nonsense in the last 5 minutes, because there was plenty of it, to me the difference in the two run games was really the difference in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals linebackers are rookies, but they are probably the biggest liability group of any defensive group in the NFL for any team. I mean,
the two secondaries, we talked Dallas and Washington with the secondaries, but yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's on that level.
I think that's the conversation, right? Those are probably the three biggest liability position groups in the NFL right now. And when I say that for the Bengals, I mean that from a coverage and a run defense standpoint. I mean, these two guys, Demetrius Knight Jr., who I liked pre-draft, by the way, who I think can be a good linebacker in this league. He's just starting as a rookie alongside Barrett Carter, who is an undersized, sort of almost like linebacker safety type of a hybrid player, because he doesn't have a ton of size to him as a traditional NFL linebacker. These two guys are playing the most snaps of any linebacker on the team. Knight had a 28.3 overall grade, and Barrett Carter had a 28.5 overall grade. Your two starting linebackers have 30 grades. Like, you're really going to struggle in this game. And specifically, bring it back around to my stat that told the story, the Bengals' lack of contain on Caleb Williams. Dalton, I think it's kind of funny that Caleb Williams' highest graded game as a pro comes on the game where he had a 4.01 time to throw. Oh, we're not talking over 3 seconds.
I was going to say,
we're talking over 4 seconds.
It was quite a familiar game to him, because this game at the end of it just looked like one of his old Pac-12 games.
He was wearing Trojan colors in this game. He was wearing if you put a USC helmet on him, you wouldn't have been able to tell the difference between this and his Heisman Trophy winning year. And I think that statement is an indictment on the Cincinnati Bengals, because a lot of teams in the NFL have figured out how to not allow Caleb Williams to look like USC version of Caleb Williams, and the Bengals could not. And I think their lack of contain goes into it. There were 18 pressures on Caleb Williams in this game. He was only sacked on 2 of them. He had an 11.1 pressure to sack ratio. That's pretty low for Caleb Williams. That's pretty good. You like to see that. He was 12 for 18 with a 78.1 passing grade when outside the pocket. So when he was pressured and then rolling out of the pocket outside of the tackles, there was no linebacker, there was no spy, there was nobody to go over and get in his face and give him pressure and make him uncomfortable. He just became USC Caleb Williams. And again, I think that, yes, that's sort of a reminder of what Caleb Williams is as a quarterback when the ball is in his hand, the type of plays that he can make. But I think that speaks a lot more clearly of what the Bengals are on defense. And right now it is just not a good defense. Right now.
I mean, and the worst part about it for the Bengals, you started to see this with some of the interviews after the game. It feels like that's starting to fracture the locker room because this team is so one-sided, right? The way they lost to the Jets last week, the way they lost this game, when you had leads in the last 2 minutes here, I mean, they just can't make stops, and it's worse than ever. And you mentioned the pass rush. It's really non-existent without Trey Hendrickson, and who knows if they'll trade Hendrickson, who knows, and he was out with injury this week, who knows if they'll trade Logan Wilson as well. He's got a request on the table, and they're not playing him anyway, even if he was healthy, so what's the difference? You might as well trade him for something. This Bengal team is really they're at a crossroads right now, I think, because you've got just too many spots. You got too many spots other than quarterback and receiver. I mean, it doesn't matter. It could be Joe Burrow, Joe Montana, Joe Flacco, Billy Joe Armstrong. It don't matter. All right. I mean, it's just they can't find any defense. And in this game, when you're not running the ball well, I mean, look, it's great. Look, Joe Flacco, credit to him, man, for throwing for 470 yards and even finding a way. Because for a minute there, remember the comeback he had with the Jets against the Browns that time, and they got the onside kick and all that in Cleveland? It looked a lot like that, where it was, wow, Joe Flacco, miracle worker, but this team can't get a stop against anybody. It really doesn't. And that's the part more than anything. There was a road here. You win these last 2 games, you save your season. Joe Burrow's coming back.
Right.
39 to the Jets, 47 to the Bears.
Yeah.
This is just, I mean.
It's tough.
What is it? Somebody said they were the first team in like 60 years to score 38 and lose 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, no. Wow, I guess, yeah, the 1960s is 60 years ago. Yeah, it's crazy to say out loud. They're the first team since the 1960s to score more than, I think it was 38 points in each of the last 2 weeks and lose both.
I mean, yeah. That says it all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this also says it all. You saw the high run blocking grades, overall blocking grades from the Chicago Bears offensive line. Darnell Wright was my most impressive in this game. He looked like a bulldozer out there. 94.1 overall blocking grade, 95.5 run blocking grade. They had a 91.0 run blocking grade as a team. Your defensive line's got to show up a lot better than that. And I just think that was the big issue for the Bengals in this game, and that's been a big issue for the Bengals the whole season, and why I think there's a lot of frustration on the defensive side of the ball is the guys on the defensive line and at the linebacker level, the players who are in the box, are just not getting it done. And some of them are young, right? I mean, you've got Shamar Stewart, Barrett Carter, Demetrius Knight, like, these are rookies. This is still the first half. Now, I know that we're halfway through, but, like, this is the first half of their rookie season. So I saw somebody in the chat saying, like, Trevor's trying so hard to, like, not be really hard on the Bengals linebackers. And I kind of am, because, like, they are rookies. Linebackers tough.
And
linebackers a difficult position to play in this league.
In the last few weeks, to me, they've been a little bit hung out to dry too. I mean, Oren Burks played 26 snaps in this game. Logan Wilson was inactive, but the last few weeks he hadn't been playing much anyway.
Right.
To me, you got 2 rookie linebackers out there trying to figure it out together. They're being hung out to dry a little bit.
So, and like the Colston Loveland game, Colston Loveland had, what was his final stat line in this one? He led the Bears 7 targets, 6 receptions, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns. The first touchdown was great. They were able to target him in the red zone, and obviously I think that targeting Colston Loveland, getting him more involved in the red area is going to be key for them. But then that 58-yard pass, I mean, it's an over-the-middle play where he breaks one tackle and then he's gone. So I think Colston Loveland had a great day. But I also think that, like, how bad the Bengals are in the middle of the field goes into Colston Loveland having a good day.
Sure.
I mean, both of these things are true about them.
But he should be able to take advantage. I mean,
he did.
It's a big-time throw there from Caleb. Yeah, one more point on Darnell Wright, just because I love to look these things up. 11 positively graded run blocks. Just outstanding stuff there in 33 snaps. I mean, that's just terrific stuff, and that's how you get a 95 run blocking grade, I should say.
Monangai was awesome. You mentioned it. 26 carries, 176 rushing yards. That's a 6.8 yards per carry average. Obviously, the offensive line was great in front of him. Anything else on this game before we move on?
I mean, Caleb Williams, 2 big-time throws. The game-winning throw there to Loveland. 5 carries, 53 yards on the ground. Caught a touchdown, 2 catches.
He did.
2 catches in this game as well. I mean, Caleb Williams just did everything. It sure felt like one of those USC performances, and he did everything too. He deserves as much credit as anybody on the team, because especially after the Bears lost that lead and it looked like, oh, here comes another classic Bears loss, he makes that throw to Loveland, and then Loveland does the rest. Caleb Williams deserves every bit of credit for this win as anybody else.
Yep. All right, Panthers fans, we see you in the chat. Let's go to the Panthers next. We'll do the Panthers and the Packers. The Panthers go into Lambeau Field, get the dub. 5-4 on the season. Top 5 graded players that we have for the Carolina Panthers. Linebacker Christian Roseboom at the top of the list with an 87.1 overall grade. Offensive guard Damian Lewis with an 83.0. Safety Trayvon Merrick with a 78.1. Had an interception in this game. Offensive tackle Yash Nyman with a 75.8. Running back Rico Dowdle rounds things out at number 5 with a 47.6. Bryce Young, I think he's still playing hurt. I mean, this is the 42.6 grade. I didn't think that Bryce had a great game in this one, but I still think that he's playing hurt, and I think that they knew that they had to get him out there because of what Andy Dalton showed him the week before. So I think that's baked into that a little bit, but a 42.6 overall grade there from Bryce Young. On Green Bay side of things, their safety, Xavier McKinney, was their top man with an 82.4. Running back Josh Jacobs, an 81.2. Offensive tackle Rasheed Walker, a 75.9. Tight end Tucker Kraft, who unfortunately tore his ACL in this game. We won't see him the rest of the season, a 74.9. Offensive tackle Zach Tom, a 71.9. And then quarterback Jordan Love, a 61.5. Stat that told the story, Dalton.
All right, I'm going on the Packers' offensive side of this, because that, to me, is where this game especially was won by Carolina's defense. All right, so the score obviously wasn't as lopsided, but Ejiro Evero, the defensive coordinator in the Panthers, they beat this Packer team the same way they beat the Atlanta Falcons a few weeks ago. And I know that game was 30-0. You got the defensive touchdown, all of that. Obviously not as dominant. The Packers are better than the Falcons. They have a better quarterback than the Falcons. Okay, but still, here was the idea. 2 deep shells in coverage, all right? 34 snaps with a 2 deep shell in coverage. Mm-hmm. The only game where the Panthers had more than that, because Avero's kind of a heavy, classic, usually cover 3 kind of coach. The only game where they had more looks with 2 deep safeties was that Falcons game, when they're trying to prevent those big vertical shots from Michael Penix. They did the same thing in this game, where they were sitting back and they were going to wait and see if Jordan Love would force it into those safeties, into those deep zone looks, right? I didn't love the way that the Packers, I still think, even with all the weapons they have, and for as much as Jordan Love has developed, this offense needs to run through Josh Jacobs the same way we just talked about with Sam Fran and Christian McCaffrey.
For sure.
So what happens here? My most impressive, I'll give the Panthers coverage unit their credit first. 74.7 coverage grade, second highest of the season. Trayvon Merrick with the interception was great. J.C. Horn was good with an 80 coverage grade. Christian Roseboom was all over the place on both ends in this game. And what it came down to was those deep looks. And there was a couple of times Love forced it in there, and he did make the throw. But here comes the high variance of Jordan Love. And what happens, too, is he forces those throws, and then there's mistakes, right? And then what happens also is when you get into Carolina territory and you don't have the entire field to work with to stretch those safeties and then work underneath them, especially if you've been forcing it lately, you run out of room, okay? The Packers' offense, before I'm setting the split at Carolina's 40-yard line, all right? Mm-hmm. Before they got to Carolina's 40-yard line, their offensive grade was an 85.8. Dominant stuff.
Yep.
Before the 40, Jordan Love, 81.3 passing grade.
Yep.
When they got inside Carolina's 40, the team grade went down to 52. Jordan Love's passing grade went down to a 34. And their yards per play went from 7.9 to 3.6. Carolina sat back and said, Okay, we're going to make you work in condensed space. And to Jordan Love's credit, last week against Pittsburgh, what was the big stat we had? The yards after catch, right? I think it was the most in any regulation game all season, right? And he made the intermediate throws, and he let Tucker Kraft do it, and all of it. It felt like Jordan Love and the Packers went into this game just going, oh, yeah, this defense sucks. We can just throw over the top on them.
Yeah.
This Carolina Panther team is pretty good. This is a better defense than they had last year, and they're sitting back going, hey, all right, fine. Jordan, stay patient. We're going to make you do it. Stay patient. And at times he's done it this year, and he's looked really good. And in this game he didn't. He went back to the old habits, and he was taking shots downfield he shouldn't have. And even the play calling I thought was a little too vertical at times in the passing game. And again, run this offense through Josh Jacobs. That should be step one. And then it's not Tucker Kraft anymore because he's hurt now. And then it's Romeo Doubs and the tight ends. And you have to set this. I've told you all season that this Packers offense should be a pendulum. Bringing safeties up, hitting them over the top, then making them lean back. The safeties in this game were leaning back the entire game, and the Packers just until the very last drive when they scored the tying touchdown, they just didn't stay patient. And it embodies itself in Jordan Love and the way that he plays and the way that he still has these types of games where those sorts of bad habits of just slinging it downfield into triple coverage for no reason still come up. Ajiro Evero came out with the same game plan he did against Penix and certainly the interception, the Mike Jackson drop in the end zone could have been house, which was just a hilarious play. But also
that was 4th and 8. And like that remember that decision shouldn't have been made. Right? That's 4th and 8 and we're tied.
Yeah, you gotta
4th and 8 and we're tied.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
you gotta kick the field goal.
It was just back to what makes at times this Packers offense and what makes Jordan Love so frustrating is just, oh, you've got too deep way back there, 30 yards back. No, I still got it. Once or twice it worked. It doesn't work over 60 minutes. Run the offense through Josh Jacobs and then get through everything else. The last drive that they scored the tying touchdown on, that's what they did. That's why they tied the game. But it was too late at that point. And the Panthers, again, credit Evero, credit the Panthers coverage unit. This Panther defense is a lot better than it was last year. I don't like the way the Packers approach this game at all. And these are the frustrating games from Jordan Love to me.
So what coverage did you say that they played?
It was a whole lot of 2 and 4. It was a whole lot of just too high shells. I can look at the specifics.
No, because I looked at the specifics of this game. They play
generally Avero's at his core he's a cover 3 guy.
So they play a lot of cover 3, and I looked this up before the season because what I'm really asking is what you were talking about in the Falcons game because I can't remember what the exact coverage scheme was in that game. But in this game, he played the most coverage of cover 6. So you have those 2 safeties, but you're also what I noticed in that game is they were playing a lot of cover 6, but it was a lot of rotating cover 6. So it was like, okay, now the safeties are going to the left. Okay, now the safeties are going to the right. And so like it was a big mix of how they were playing cover 6. And I felt like this would be the case, and I looked up the numbers to see if this is true, and it is. Jordan Love is tied for second this year with the most big-time throws over the middle of the field. So you would think probably 15 or more yards down the field. I probably should. I can see what it's like for like
about
20.
Right, yeah.
But he is tied for second with the most big-time throws down the middle of the field. He is also tied for 4th with the most turnover-worthy plays down the middle of the field. So, I think that Evero looked at this and he said, I'm going to have a middle-of-the-field defender. I'm going to make middle-of-the-field closed in this game. And I'm basically going to dare Jordan Love, like you mentioned, not just to play like in front of the deep safeties, but basically say, I'm going to put a guy exactly where you want to throw the ball because I don't think you can resist. I don't think you can resist for 60 minutes. I think you're going to give us the football. And he did. And there were 3 throws in this game because Jordan Love had, 1 pick in this game? He had one interception in this game, that interception to Trevor. He had at least 3 that I can remember where I go, They dared you to throw that football, and you did.
And there was a couple of them where they dared him to do it. The big over route into double coverage. I mean, that's a special throw, but it's a risky one. And then there was even his other big time throw in the dig that just got over it. Like,
holy cow! What a throw that was!
What a throw it was! But
that's one of the best throws I've seen all season.
But it's the high and low of Jordan Love.
100%.
And these two high, especially when you talk about 4 and 6. They ran both of these at just about double the rate that they did the rest of the year. So not only is it the Atlanta game, it felt like they were sitting back at a further depth. This game, they really went too high and messed with the coverages. And you're right. That's a good way to put it. He just couldn't resist. He just could not. And it was in a game. Last week he could, because that was clearly the game plan going in is, hey, D-line's coming. Get it out, right? If they had done that, if they came into this week with last week's game plan, they win this game by 20. But instead, they went, no, we're going to get back vertical this week. We're going to hit home runs. And was there one or two? Sure. But you can't force it. And you throw off the rhythm of the rest of your offense when you do that. And again, I still go back to also the play calling. To me, it just has to start with Josh Jacobs. He's still the engine. And I just don't see why. Especially, look at the way we saw Buffalo running Carolina last week. Mm-hmm. When you look at that and go, hey, if we run Jacobs away from the big Derek Brown, number 95 in the middle, we could run for 200 also. Wouldn't you think that? And then set up the rest of it instead of just allowing Jordan Love to just be kind of unhinged like that?
Yeah.
I know it's one loss and the Packers are still in a really good spot and all of that. These are the games that are frustrating with them.
Yeah. I think the Panthers are doing a really nice job of sort of like finding what their rhythm is with as many players as they have on offense. I think Dave Canales is doing a really good job on that side of the ball. They've got offensive linemen who are in and out of that lineup with injury. They've got, Chuba Hubbard who's coming back, and Hubbard hasn't really been as explosive as he has been in the past, but they keep leaning on Rico Dowdle. He keeps delivering for them. He's got great chemistry with that offensive line and the timing of rush lanes and everything. We talked a couple of weeks ago about them leaning into heavier personnel sets with multiple tight ends on the field when Mitchell Evans is out there, when he's blocking really well. The wide receiver room it's not the most feared wide receiver room in the league, but Tetro McMillan is playing really well. It feels like Xavier Legette is at least putting himself in a situation to give you a couple big catches a week. Jalen Coker being back is a nice, reliable target for them. And so it just feels like they've got a decent amount of pieces right now on the offense. And Dave Canales is doing a really good job with even who's out there, with guys who are hurt and guys who aren't. And I think that it was a tough game for Bryce. And it hasn't been the best overall season for Bryce, but kind of like I said, it's hard for me to judge this one too much because I don't even know how healthy he is on that ankle or foot injury that he had. And I don't know how much of it is he was ready to come back, and it was hey, buddy, if we put Andy Dalton out there again, we will not win this game.
Well, I think wasn't Dalton hurt as well?
Oh, yeah, didn't have the hand injury, the thumb injury. Yeah.
Well, and also, and in Bryce's defense, and obviously it wasn't great, especially the pick in the end zone to McKinney. It's a darn good defense he's playing against. I mean, when you got Edger and Cooper lighting him up on the sideline, Xavier McKinney's looming back there, Micah Parsons is always waiting for you. I mean, it's a darn good defense. This is a game where if you're an underdog, like, what was it, 14-point underdogs? Darn near against the Packers. You go, yeah. If you're Dave Canales, you tell Bryce Young, man, hey, I don't care. However we get out of here with a win is fine.
Look, the Panthers...
They're 5-4, and their next two games are Saints-Falcons.
I know. Let's look at the Panthers schedule. Let's look at what the Panthers season has been so far this year. 26-10 against Jacksonville, they lose, okay? Not a great showing. Cardinals, 27-22. They sort of come back at the very end, but they were kind of getting whooped in that game. 30-0, they beat the Falcons. All right? Very different from the first two games they played. Then they get absolutely smacked by the New England Patriots, 42-13. Nice win against the Miami Dolphins, 27-24. Really nice win against the Dallas Cowboys, 30-27. Tight win against the New York Jets, 13-6. Get absolutely destroyed by the Buffalo Bills, 40-9. And then they go into Green Bay and they beat the Packers in a low-scoring game. They then play the Saints. Then it's the Falcons, it's the 49ers and the Rams after that before they have a Week 14 bye week, in which, by the way, they are – well, Tampa didn't play this week and they haven't had their bye. So they're 5-4, Tampa is 6-2. So was it technically like a game and a half?
Yeah.
So like a game and a half back from Tampa. Their last three games of the season, Tampa, Seattle, Tampa.
Got to earn it. I mean – Doesn't this feel like, though, this is what you want to see as kind of the natural progression of the Panthers, right? Second half of last year, Bryce was playing better. They were in a lot of close games, lost a lot of close games, but they were in a lot of close games. Mm-hmm. And now you've got that team, that young team that's starting to figure out how to win because, for as much of a roller coaster as that is, the defense is definitely better. Bryce, obviously the injuries in and out, and this is a really good defense he played this week. But, Bryce is trying to figure it out as we go. But they've won 5 out of 7. And I think for that alone, for as much of a train wreck as the Panthers have been the last few years, they deserve plenty of credit for that. Even maybe they don't. Maybe they get to Seattle, Tampa, and then it cools off and they just miss the playoffs. Fine, but the fact that they're this late, it's been a few years since we've even seen them going into Week 10 as a competitive team, right? And this is really, to me, the natural progression that Dave Canales wants. It's not always going to be this instant thing like Mike Vrabel going into New England and doing what they're doing right now. Sometimes it takes time to build that. Their defense is definitely better than it was last year, no question. You hold this Packer team to 13 points in Lambeau, you're feeling pretty good about your defense. And then they can run the football, and the X factor down the stretch is going to be Bryce Young. And if he can play like we saw the second half of last year, I don't see why this team couldn't make the playoffs, at least have a shot at it.
The narrative, the belief, the plan for this Carolina Panthers team hinges so much on what happens over the next 4 weeks versus New Orleans, at Atlanta, at San Francisco, and versus the Los Angeles Rams. How you look against these teams will – because then after that you have the bye, and then it's at New Orleans and then Tampa, Seattle, Tampa. So obviously, like if you're in the hunt, that part of your season determines whether or not you're going to get in the playoffs. But I think these next 4 weeks totally determine what we believe this Panthers team is going to be this offseason, like what this looks like this offseason. Are they making wholesale changes? Are they building on what they're about to do in 2026? So this is a massive 4-week stretch here for the Carolina Panthers. I think the Packers on the other side of things, like I think they'll be fine. Tucker Kraft going down. Obviously, they'll need more from Luke Musgraves, but I think honestly they're just going to continue to lean on Romeo Doubs as their main receiver there because he's been really reliable for them. For them, it's just about execution, and it's about making the right decisions in the right spots. They're still one of the most talented teams in the NFL. I think they'll be fine overall, but consistency is not a word that I would use for the Packers right now.
Nope.
So you always got to be cautious whenever that's the case. Okay, let's talk about the Chargers and the Titans. The Titans, well, I was about to say the Titans made this game close. The Chargers kind of were the ones who made this close, right? Because you got the pick six at the beginning, and then you let Chimere Dike return a punt for a touchdown on you. So,
the Chargers versus the Chargers.
I don't want to take too much credit away from the Titans. Like the Chimere Dike one, I don't want to take too much away from him there. Cody Barton with the pick six there. I don't want to take anything away from them, but that was also baked in a little bit of the Chargers getting that result. But anyways, 27-20 was the final score of this one. The Chargers end up winning the game when it's all said and done. Odafe Owe was the top-rated player here for the Los Angeles Chargers, the guy they traded for a couple of weeks ago with an 86.2. Tight end Tucker Fisk with an 83.6. Safety Derwin James a 78.0. Edge rusher Tuli Tuipulotu with a 74.6. Wide receiver Trey Harris a 73.7, and then Justin Herbert a 78.5. On Tennessee's side of things, defensive tackle Sebastian Joseph Day with an 89.7. Linebacker Cody Barton, who we talked about getting that pick six, with a 79.2. Safety Quandre Diggs a 74.1. Edge rusher Jihad Ward with a 70.8. And then edge rusher Draymond Jones a 70.2. Cam Ward in this game a 40.6. Stat that told the story, Dalton.
Yeah, I mean, for good and bad reasons, actually, the Titans only got to run 44 offensive plays in this game, and maybe it was their best shot to win. You mentioned the Cody Barton pick six on, look, no controversy this time around Justin Herbert. This was his lowest graded throw, is his worst throw of the season. The pick six right in Cody Barton's chest. Great read on it, obviously set him back 7-0 on the second play of the game, but you had the DK punt return, but otherwise the Chargers dominated this game outside of those two plays, right? The Titans had a 49.3 offensive grade, 1 for 9 on third down. The Chargers had the ball for over 34 minutes, and Justin Herbert working around this offensive line once again, I thought was outstanding outside of the one throw. Only a 65.9 passing grade. You take out that one throw, which it still exists. You can't take it out. But if I did it, you took out that one throw, his passing grade was a 78. That's another really good day. Also getting it done on the ground, running the football, scrambling outside, and look, vertically down the field. We know he's still one of the best passers in the NFL, 92.8 passing grade on 10-plus yard throws. Once he got by the pick six and just, his worst throw of the season, Justin Herbert was awesome. And once again, for a team that is really struggling to run the ball, and Joe Alt's hurt again now, maybe worse than the first time, and he's just grinding his way through this offensive line that's just been so mangled throughout the year, and it's been their biggest problem. Herbert carried them to another win, even through some early difficulty.
On the other side of things,
yeah,
I don't know what else to say. The Titans' offense is horrible. It's the worst in the NFL. It's not even close. It's not. They were 1 for 9 on third down in this game. They were 0 for 1 on fourth down. They were 0 for 2 in the red zone. They were 0 for 1 on goal-to-go situations. Had 25 minutes total time possession. Cam Ward had a 40 PFF grade. I don't.
Can't block, can't throw, can't catch, can't run.
Yeah.
That's the list.
I just don't really know what else to say more about this time. The Chargers, you talk about like betting. What was the line 14 and a half in this game?
Even for the Chargers on the road like that? Maybe. It might have been. Maybe 13, somewhere in there. I mean, it's just it's hard to you'd have to check that. I don't remember.
Because what I'm saying is the Chargers basically spotted them the 14. They gave them the free 14.
Yep. Here's
a pick six and here's a punt return for a touchdown. They still lost by a touchdown. They can't do anything on offense. There's nothing on offense for this team.
I'd have to wonder. Somebody has to have the research on
I'm not trying to be overly critical, by the way. I don't know. When I look at this Titans team, I don't know what to think. I don't. Cam Ward will not get better this year.
Where that's it right there. Two things. I wonder for the anomaly of it. Somebody do the research out there. How many teams lately, who knows, maybe last 20 years, have had a defensive touchdown and a special teams touchdown and lost? I'd be curious.
Yeah,
I'd be curious because it's not very many. I guarantee it.
Very few.
I'd be super curious on how many that is. The other thing too, I think at this point, and we're only halfway through it, which is rough. You just have to look at Cam Ward's rookie season the way that we looked at Bryce Young's. And the coaching turmoil and the disaster, and that team had nothing. That's where we're at. Is Cam Ward's rookie season is the same as Bryce Young, and you just hope any habits that he picks up during this season, any bad habits, don't stick or anything like that for the future, and a new coach can really work with him. But that's where I'm at. Is like, I can't even judge Cam Ward. It's not fair. It's not. They can't block.
Right.
Can't block anybody.
Right.
And he's got. I mean, right now the three guys he's throwing to: Iamainer, DK, Gunnar Helm. All rookies. They're all rookies with him.
Right.
I got a bad offensive line and a skill group full of rookies.
Right.
What are they going to do?
Yeah.
You can't. Anybody judging Cam Ward about whether or not he's the guy, either way, it's just not fair to him at all.
I'm really impressed every single week with the diversity of the Chargers passing attack. Oronde Gadsden, another good week, 68 more yards on the season. That's been fantastic from him since he has gotten into this starting lineup. Ladd McConkey, 56 receiving yards. Quentin Johnson, 53 receiving yards. Keenan Allen, 41. Trey Harris got 18. Tucker Fisk had 12. Scott Matlock had 2 yards and a touchdown on his one catch. Like, it's all kind of there from them. Even Keandre Lambert-Smith got a target in this game. He didn't haul in a catch, but they are so willing to get everyone involved on this offense. And very clearly, Justin Herbert doesn't play favorites like this. He can complete a pass to anybody on this team. And I think that just, again, goes to show how talented Justin Herbert is and how well he is playing. Is you just look at the laundry list of guys that are getting targets and have catches and receiving yards and receiving touchdowns for them. And it's pretty deep. It's about as deep as you'll see for any team. And so that, to me, was the most impressive, is how Justin Herbert continues to connect with no matter who his receiver is and move the ball like this.
Yeah, and again, with just the severe lack of pass protection that this team has with all the injuries they have, and it looks like Joe Alt might be out for a while, might even need surgery this time. They have the third worst pass blocking grade in the league. And yet Justin Herbert is still putting this team on his back. And they can't run the football either. I think they have, is it the first or second worst run blocking grade? They have the worst run blocking grade in the end. I mean, he's doing what we would normally talk about, say, Joe Burrow doing with Cincinnati right now. That's right. Exactly what Justin Herbert's doing. And, we talked earlier about Darnold and Stafford being MVP candidates. And I know on the surface, Herbert has 8 interceptions, and it's a lot and all that, and
Herbert should be considered. He won't be, but he should
at least be thought about, because this offense, with this offensive line without Justin Herbert, I don't know that they'd score at all.
No.
And the way that he's playing right now.
Unless you're replacing him with one of the other MVP candidates.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know what this offense
He's been outstanding. I mean, the only thing I worry about long-term is if and when they get in the playoffs with this offensive line, if Joe Alt's not 100% or not in there, I think they're just going to lose a game in the trenches when they get there. But the fact that they could still get there, say, with 10, 11 wins is really impressive, because they've gone through a lot of
hard
adversity.
To not be bullish on their future as well with Alt and Rashawn Slater being fully healthy, and you're hoping, that they address interior offensive line a little bit stronger when we get to the offseason, maybe with their first-round pick. They're investing in an offensive lineman, something like that. So they're 6-3. They look good. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Joe Alt was the most disappointing, and the injury was the most disappointing thing for me as well. Vikings and the Lions. Oh, boy.
What a win.
What a win for the Minnesota Vikings. 27-24. J.J. McCarthy comes back. I know he had that second half against Chicago to open up the season, but it really was not pretty for him, really outside of that. And people talked about, well, was it a soft benching with Carson Wentz being out there and playing so hurt? Like, were you just nervous to get McCarthy out there? And
I'll tell you what.
I don't know what the truth was.
I'm so tired of that term.
Soft benching?
That is such an externally made up. There is not a soul. There is not a coaching soul on the planet who would ever go, let me soft bench this guy. So I'll bench him, but I won't tell them. No, it's not that's such an external thing that people. I'm so tired of that. That's all I've heard for the last 3 weeks. Or we heard.
You're giving the politics of NFL teams
there's
a lot of benefit.
There's not a chance that there's an NFL coach going, let me do a soft benching. Let me bench this guy, but not tell people I'm actually doing. I mean. What in the world is that? If you're gonna bench a guy, be straightforward about it. But there's nobody going, well, let me try to bench this guy, but sneak around the zillions of media members. What do we do? Like, get rid of the term, like, soft benching. There's no such thing as a soft bench. Like, that's not a thing.
Clearly, J.J. McCarthy didn't get soft benched then.
Didn't need to.
Didn't need to.
Seriously, I mean, I what a made-up term in the last, 3 or 4 weeks that I'm just like, why does this even exist?
I'm glad you got that off
Sorry,
your chest.
I went on a different rant. You go to the top 5 now.
I'm glad that you got that off your chest. Top 5 graded players that we have for the Minnesota Vikings. Linebacker Blake Cashman, he wasn't soft-benched. He had a 90.8 overall grade in this game. Defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, not soft-benched. 81.4. Running back Aaron Jones, he's been hurt, but he certainly wasn't soft-benched. 76.7. Edge rusher Andrew Van Ginkel, off the soft benching. 75.1. Cornerback Fabian Moreau is 73.4, and then J.J. McCarthy, who, of course,
the least soft bench player in the league.
Was never soft bench.
Jeez.
A 63.5. On Detroit side of things, offensive tackle Penei Sewell, an 84.5. Tight end Sam Laporta, an 82.1. Linebacker Derek Barnes, a 75.2. Linebacker Alex Anzalone with a 73.5. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown, a 70.2. And then quarterback Jared Goff, a 72.4. Really quick, I don't know how much we're going to talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown because the Lions didn't win. His stat line was great, as it always is. Did you see him absolutely blindside Andrew Van Ginkel on one of those plays? He's running like it's not quite a drag route, like on a mesh concept, but it's sort of like this shallow cross where he's going over to the middle of the field. And Van Ginkel is lined up like really outside of where, like if here's the offensive line, he's lined up really outside here. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is like going across the line of scrimmage. And Van Ginkel like gets off the line, and Amon-Ra St. Brown just absolutely blows him like off of the ground, like completely decleats him, and then just keeps running his route. Funny enough, though, they're running a screen to the running back, and Andrew Van Ginkel, you could almost like see it like a cartoon. He like picks himself up, like dusts off his hat, puts his hat back on. The screen goes right to the running back who's right next to him, and he just immediately
Oh, no, I think for me, actually, there's a
was.
lot that goes into that Viking defense. I think the number one rule for me going against Minnesota would be do not throw
He's my most impressive.
Do not throw a screen on Andrew Van Ginkel's side. Just don't ever do it.
The reason why I know that play is because I watched all of Andrew Van Ginkel's stuff because he had the highest run defense grade, an 80.6 run defense grade. And how valuable is this guy for this team? The football IQ for him, knowing where the ball is going, is just through the roof. They ran I don't know if it was technically like a pass or if it was like a toss, like to the outside to Jahmyr Gibbs. And Andrew Van Ginkel like knew the play was happening before the play even happened.
Yeah.
And he immediately got in the backfield. He immediately funneled Jahmyr Gibbs back to the inside where help was. And he's the whole reason why that play didn't work, because he played it so well.
Don't ever run a screen to his side.
I'd barely run it to his side.
Yeah.
Just because of how good he is at slipping offensive tackles and other blocks, and just how smart he is with how well he plays. So that was my most impressive. But what was your stat that told the story?
For me, look, you want to beat this Lions team, you have to stop the run and look, Jared Goff, can he beat you? Sure. But I would rather him try to beat me than the run game, right? The Lions only had 2 explosive runs in this game, and they're now 0-3 in games when they don't run for 100 yards, okay? And look, Jared Goff is good, top 10, top 12-ish quarterback, somewhere in there, especially when he's got the clean pockets to work with. But if given the choice, you're going, hey, what are you stopping, Jared Goff or the run game? I'm taking a run game, 10 out of 10. And taking a game like this where Jared Goff has to drop back, throw the football, come from behind, and overcome the mistakes that happen up front. The Lions, 20 carries was a season low. They didn't even run the football as much as they normally do. 65 yards, a 44.9 rushing grade, 0.8 yards before contact. Not a game that we're used to seeing from this Lions offensive line. Not a game we're used to seeing from their running backs. But again, 3 games where they have not gotten 100 yards rushing. They've lost all 3 of them. I don't think that's any coincidence. You go into these games going, look, yes, Jared Goff, he's really good. He is, no question about it, right? Especially over the middle of the field. But you don't want this Lions team running for 200 yards on you. That's how they're going to beat you, is their offensive line and getting physical. You make Jared Goff beat you, you like your chances a lot better. Make it a quarterback-type game. He is, I don't want to call him a weak link because he's really good, but he's just my preferred option as a defense. If I'm going to lose a game, I'll lose it to Jared Goff if that happens. I'm not getting run over. And the Vikings run defense, my most impressive, another guy in that front 7, Blake Cashman, was just, you talk about being everywhere. 14 total tackles, 92.2 run defense grade. The chase down forced fumble of David Montgomery, that was maybe the biggest play in this game. 3 pressures and a sack as well. Blake Cat, that was, of all the injuries that we've talked about for Minnesota, McCarthy and Aaron Jones and Darisaw and O'Neal and Ryan Kelly, the one on the defensive side that was hurting him the most when he was out was Blake Cashman. Right there. I like Ivan Pace a lot, but Blake Cashman's the Mike linebacker in this defense, and he's awesome in run defense. In the last 2 weeks, he's been outstanding now that he's healthy and really getting back into rhythm. That was the most underrated injury that this team had that was really hurting their defense in some of those weeks where they did struggle to stop the run. His presence now over the last couple of weeks has made a huge difference for Brian Flores and his defense.
Yeah, I think that you're onto something with the Lions run game. When you look at them having explosive runs, so runs of 10 or more yards. They're 11th in the NFL this year for most explosive runs. They were first in the NFL last year. When you look at EPA per rush this season, they're 16th in the NFL. They were first last year. So it's just a major difference of where this team is with running the football this year versus last year. It's not to say that they can't have games where they're really explosive. They're very efficient. We've seen that from time to time from them this year. It's just not as consistent of a week in and week out thing. And I don't even think the overall volume of explosive runs is there for them this year the way that it was last year. And so I think that that's something to monitor for this Lions team. And it doesn't lower their ceiling, but it does lower their floor, right? Because it's not that we don't believe that this team can't be explosive on the ground. I feel like there have been multiple weeks where they have been really explosive on the ground, and they have played really well. But the floor of them being able to do it every single week is not at the level that it was last year. So I don't think their ceiling is lower, but I think their floor is lower, which still makes it dangerous when you talk about, making a Super Bowl run and having to do it multiple weeks in a row when it comes to the playoffs against some really good teams. I think that their slow start was the reason why they weren't able to get ahead in this game and why they ended up losing. 5 of their first 7 possessions ended in punts. 4 of them were 3-and-outs. You just almost never see that again from this Lions team. So it's tough to win like that.
So, all right, I have a little more bad news on the Lions on that explosive run thing. You said they were 11th in total explosive runs, right?
Yes.
So last year, explosive run rate. Okay, so now we're going to account for the rate and the number of carries, right? Last year, 7th in explosive run rate. This year, 30th. That's only ahead of Dallas and Cleveland in an explosive run rate.
I believe it.
That's not good. And when you say, yes, it's still a good offensive. Remember how we talked about the offensive line? The tackles are still really good. We know that. What's this interior going to look like? It's inconsistent now. And now your problem is Christian Mahogany's going to be out for a while with injury. Taylor Decker is at least banged up, not playing 100%. I believe Penei Sewell's not even playing 100% right now. The left side of this line struggled. That is actually a shocking number to me that I was not aware of till just now. They have the 3rd lowest explosive run rate in the league. That's a problem at only 9%. That's a real problem for this offense because they need those to really get things moving.
In terms of McCarthy was, hold on, pulling up the stats. McCarthy was 14 for 25, had 143 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He had 9 carries for 12 yards. He did have that touchdown and that long of 9 rushing yards, but he just had that 1.3 yards per carry average. When it came to big-time throws and turnover-worthy plays, he was
2-1 there.
2-1 still. Okay, so yeah, 2 big-time throws, 1 turnover-worthy play. Average time to throw of a 3.21, so it was pretty high from him. And then the completion percentage of 53.8. I don't have the adjusted completion percentage. I got to look that up in a second.
69.6.
Okay, so below that 70 mark where you usually like to hit, but pretty close to it. Anything else on this one before we move on?
No, I think you're right on McCarthy. He had moments, and when he was clean back there, when he wasn't having to make decisions under pressure, he
looked like he hadn't played in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
there were a couple of throws where you go, okay, right read. Ball was way behind him, or something like that. So I kind of just think that he looked like he hadn't played. And
credit to him, he made plays when he had to. I thought the back shoulder to Naylor to win the game was big time for him. Just to kind of finish off that win. You don't want to take a chance punting it back to a really good offense still. No, he was good when he had to be. It was ugly at times, but I'll tell you what, a win is a win, especially with the Vikings as bad as they needed a win.
Oh, and you saying that a win is a win is almost like it's just not giving it the praise that it deserves. I mean, this is not just a win. This is a win in Detroit against the Lions.
Yeah.
This is huge for the Vikings and how up and down their season has been up until this point, which brings their record to 4-4 on the season. The NFC North is, everybody is still absolutely jam-packed right in the middle of that.
It's the best division of football, I think.
And I think that there were it was looking at certain times you wonder like, man, is this kind of getting away from Minnesota? Are they not really going to be able to compete here? Like is Detroit about to run away with this? Were the Packers going to run away with it? Packers in Detroit, they have a couple of losses here and there. Bears win this week against the Bengals. Vikings win against the Detroit Lions, and all of a sudden, boom, everybody is like right there again for this division. So it's going to be fun until the very end. It really is. Dalton, before we get to our last couple of games that we're talking about here, plus we'll do the Thursday Night Football game. We'll talk about that one. Best part about the weather getting a little bit better, it's grilling, in my opinion. It's just, you get to be outside, nice home-cooked meal, specifically when it's a good steak.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing like whenever your weekend is, like whether it's a Thursday or a Friday or whatever. I know that we get done with the shows on Wednesday, and okay, those are all of our shows that we're doing for the week. We still do a lot of like prep and film work later in the week, but still, when the last show is done, Wednesday night, firing up the grill, there's no feeling like it. Omaha Steaks has got you guys. They are the place to go if you want that feeling on a weekly basis of just throwing a good cut of meat on the grill. From handcrafted steaks to delicious fall favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Enjoy USDA-certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, cozy, convenient comfort meals, tailgating favorites, chicken wings, smash burgers, big deli-style franks, whatever it is. Now during their Red Hot Sales event, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus get an extra $35 off with the promo code PFF at checkout. I talked about how whenever that weekend is, there's nothing I love more than just having a good cut of meat that I could defrost, get on the grill, and just usher in a good couple of days off, whatever that is. It's incredibly convenient to just have that high-quality Omaha Steaks on hand. Did you talk about being a ribeye guy or you're a filet guy?
Filet.
That's what it, yeah.
Usually a filet or a strip for me. Yeah.
Okay, all right. The last 2 times, I'm a big ribeye guy. So the last couple times I've done it, I'm trying to usher in the weekend with a good ribeye. So that's me. But whatever your choice cut of meat is, they've got it out there for you. Heartland quality food. It's delivered right to your door. Unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. Right now, it's the perfect time to stock up with the exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks, folks. Get fired up for fall grilling with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their Red Hot Sales event and get an extra $35 off if you use the promo code PFF at checkout. Walt, you paying attention? You say all the time you're throwing something on the grill. I see you in the chat. You better be heading to Omaha Steaks. 50% off at omahasteaks.com, plus that extra $35 off with the promo code PFF at checkout. You guys can see their website for details. Colts Steelers. No longer calling it the perfect season.
It's over. They're not calling it the perfect season.
They're not calling it the perfect
I'm
season.
sad.
Pittsburgh wins this one. Steelers fans aren't sad. 27-20. They get the dub over one of the best teams in the NFL through the first 8 weeks of the year. Top 5 graded players that we had for the Pittsburgh Steelers: edge rusher Alex Highsmith, a 90.6. Edge rusher TJ Watt, an 85.3. Defensive tackle Cam Hayward, a 77.6. Honestly, Dalton, if those are the top 3 graded players for the Steelers, I'd pretty much tell you that they won. Like, if those 3 guys are the top graded players for the Steelers, unless something catastrophic happened on offense, I'd tell you the Steelers probably won that game. Tight end Darnell Washington at number 4 with a 75.1. Defensive tackle Keanu Benton, a 74.7. And then Aaron Rodgers in this game, a 70.2. He's going through a little bit of, a hand injury or something before the game. I saw him kind of messing with his hand. Ian Rappaport was telling that, but hey, they still get the dub here. Indianapolis Colts, their top graded player was edge rusher Latu Latu with an 82.6. Cornerback Mekhi Blackman with a 72.5. Defensive tackle DeForest Buckner, a 72.3. Wide receiver Michael Pittman Jr., a 72.2. Safety Cam Bynum, a 72.1. And then Daniel Jones in this game struggled, a 53.1. Dalton, 6 turnovers in this game from the Indianapolis Colts. And for both of us, that was the stat that told the story here.
Actually, pretty amazing that you could turn the ball over 6 times in an NFL game and still only lose by 7.
They only lost by 7.
I mean, that's actually pretty darn impressive. But yeah, Josh Downs muffs a punt, the Steelers, that was the one time they didn't take advantage of it. But 2 Daniel Jones fumbles in the pocket, 3 interceptions, 24 of the Steelers' 27 points came off turnovers. I mean, there's really, for as much strategy and all that goes into it, I think the one thing I think Shane Steichen might regret a little bit in this game is that he didn't quite find the rhythm and run the football a lot with Jonathan Taylor early in this game. But once they were behind and they started turning the football over, it became what it became, right? I think it's just, you lose a turnover battle like that and you have 6 turnovers on an NFL field, you probably should have lost by a lot more. And then, you're not going to win that football game, right? I mean, Daniel Jones, and we've seen it in their 2 losses now, right? The 3 interceptions against the Rams, and now for him, 5 turnovers in this game. That's their 2 losses. In all the 7 wins, we've praised them every week for playing really good, squeaky clean football. This was a week where they went into Pittsburgh. They didn't do it. Obviously, you had a pretty nice matchup there with the Colts offensive line and the Steelers defensive line, and the Steelers got the better of them up front. But no, I mean, it's a tough road environment against some days a really good defense, especially the pass rush. And no, you turn the ball over 6 times, you're going to lose. I think it's probably what is, I don't know if it's ever been done at the NFL level, but this is probably a single-digit number of games ever that have been won where a team has 6 turnovers.
Yeah, I cannot imagine there's many.
If any. I'd have to find that. I know it doesn't happen often, that's for sure.
Yep, it was just a bad day at the office for the Indianapolis Colts offense, and I think that's the only way to say it. And when we were going through the preview show last week, I talked about how, hey, the Colts have been a really good run blocking unit. You highlighted that and said that they could still be a good run blocking unit against the Steelers defensive front. But the pass rush is what I was worried about, the Steelers pass rush, and the Colts have been fine at pass blocking, but not nearly as dominant as a pass blocking unit as they have been as a run blocking unit. And I think that came to pay for them with the turnovers and with the opportunities to get in the backfield and force the turnovers. One of the guys who forced those turnovers was TJ Watt, who was my most impressive in this game. Just to me, it was just a classic TJ Watt game where he was so savvy, he was so smart. He had pass rush and run defense grades above 70. I mean, this dude was fantastic. I felt like he was impactful all game, even when he wasn't making like a solo stop, even when he wasn't getting a sack, he was affecting the game, and he does that so many times. Run defense and pass rush grades above 78, not just 70, 78. So I didn't want to sell him short there, but he was good, and he was a representation of how the rest of the Steelers defense was playing, specifically up front. And I think the coverage was a good coverage day for the Steelers as well. So it was just, the Steelers were ready to play. They took advantage of the opportunity. It was not a good day for the Indianapolis Colts, but I think the Steelers putting them in tough situations is a good reason why. And so it's not a game where I think that we're now – sometimes we get these wins and losses and we spend a lot more times in these teams because we think that, okay, well, this win, this loss exposed something maybe in a good or a bad way with one of these teams. And this really was just – it was a great game plan by the Steelers. It was them showcasing the potential that we believe that this team has. It was sort of like a by-the-book day of sort of what they wanted there, although the Darnell Washington emphasis on the offensive side of the ball was – I didn't think that we would get that, but he was heavily involved in the offense. And then for the Colts, it was just – you can't turn the ball over 6 times.
No, I mean, several standouts, right? My number one guy here is also the other edge defender, Alex Highsmith, 84.4 pass rush grade, four pressures 2 sacks, one of them a strip sack that forced a turnover, also dropped into coverage and got a pass breakup. But, I mean, several guys to shout out here. Highsmith and Watt were great. Cam Hayward, as always, was great. Peyton Wilson, how about him with, 12 total tackles for Peyton Wilson. A batted pass that ends up in Jack Sawyer's hands for an interception. He had an interception of his own. Joey Porter had an interception and 3 pass breakups. I mean, you just got contributions from so many guys on the Steelers defense. And look, when you're playing this Steeler team, yeah, they have Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf and all that on offense, but this is what keeps you up at night. First, the defensive line, and then if the rest of the guys on the back end, like a Peyton Wilson, like a Joey Porter, play well, then you got a real problem with this defense. I mean, that's really what keeps you up, and that's why it's been so frustrating, because they have this much talent at all 3 levels, and yet there's days like the Jet game earlier in the year, like the Bengals game a couple weeks ago, where you go, why are they not playing up to their potential? Because this is what their potential is shutting down a really darn good offense like this.
Yeah, no, I agree. So Steelers played well on defense, and certainly we saw that. The offense could have been more explosive, but I feel like this is just also the DNA of the team. Like this, they're made to win through their defense, and Rodgers is here to give them that wisdom from the quarterback position, where I'm not saying that he doesn't have the potential to have big games, but you're not going to get that every single week from Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career. So what you're really hoping is that just the floor is high enough, like it was in this game, where you could force some turnovers, you could play well on defense, and you can get a win against a good team.
Aaron Rodgers' job in this offense is to convert when he has prime opportunities to do so. He did that in this game. Once again, 24 of the Steelers' 27 points off turnovers.
Yeah, there you go.
That simple.
It's key. The Falcons and the Patriots. The Patriots win this game, but by the hair on their chinny chin chin, as the saying goes. 24-23 was the final score here. The New England Patriots top 5 graded players that we had here: wide receiver Demario Douglas with a 94.7 overall grade. Safety Jalen Hawkins, who's having a heck of a year, right behind him with a 79.4. Defensive tackle Milton Williams, a 77.0. Edge rusher Harold Landry with a 74.5. Offensive tackle Will Campbell, a 72.1. Drake May in this game, not his best, a 59.1 overall grade. On the Falcons side of things, boy, I said this on Twitter, I don't know if there's any defensive player in the league that would have contained Drake London yesterday. Not to say that he hasn't been contained before in his career, but the way that he was playing yesterday, I don't know if there's a corner that would have gotten the better of Drake London yesterday. A 92.1 overall grade. Defensive tackle Sam Roberts with an 89.7. Edge rusher Arnold Ebiketie with a 78.4. Running back Bijan Robinson a 76.4. Center Ryan Nuzio with a 73.8, and then Michael Penix Jr. a 58.8. Stat that told the story here, Dalton.
Credit to the Patriots, credit to Josh McDaniels for getting off to a hot start in this game. 21 points scored on 3 of their first 4 drives. 78.7 offensive grade on those first 4 drives and 7.2 yards per play. McDaniels, I thought, called this game really well early, and then Jeff Ulbrich and the Falcons made some nice adjustments to only give up 3 points the rest of the way. You're not going to get, even for as hot as this Patriots offense is and for as good as Drake May has been, you're not going to get 60 minutes of great football every single week. Sometimes it comes in spurts, kind of the same way last week against the Browns, where it was a first half struggle, and then the third quarter they exploded and then cruised the rest of the way. It felt like this hot start from New England in this game really set the tone. Obviously, Michael Penix and Drake London with the furious comeback and the missed extra point from Parker Romo ended up being the difference. But it was the fact that they got ahead early on a Falcons team that wants to run the football, and they didn't get to at their own pace because they were behind early and didn't get to control the pace of the game. From there, New England's defense did just enough to come away with it. New England on offense burned enough time to get out with a 1-point win. But I think the biggest reason they won was just the hot start they got off to. I thought really, again, Josh McDaniels for that stretch called excellent plays. Drake May, not his best day. A couple of fumbles could have, kind of hurt him, especially at the end of the first half. That let the Falcons back in the game. But the hot start to me was the big story as far as the Falcons not being able to run the football when they wanted to and then just digging in from behind the whole game.
I think the Falcons got to feel like they let one get away here because of how they adjusted and how they played in the second half and obviously how the scoreboard was in the end. Dalton, they were 1 for 10 on third down. 1 for 10. And you're still in a situation where you only lost by 1 to the Patriots, given how hot that team is. You got to feel like you played pretty well in this game. And I went and I went back and I watched all those third downs. It's just a lot of difficult-looking concepts. It's a lot of, clear out routes, and then one route is really, all you're focusing on. It's not a lot of it's not a lot of reads. It's not a lot of layered things. There's not a lot of progressions to go to. I just felt as though there was just so many, okay, 2 wide receivers or 3 wide receivers are running verticals, and then somebody's kind of like coming underneath, but not really even in a way where they would get a lot of yards after catch. Like sometimes it was just like a curl route or a hook route that was, maybe at the line of scrimmage or at the sticks, or maybe a couple yards ahead of the sticks. And it just didn't feel like the third down game plan was doing Michael Penix any favors. And it felt like there was that hesitation from Michael Penix as well. It felt like he had hesitation to make those really difficult throws, and he just wasn't having as confident of a day as we have seen him have in the past. He had a couple of really nice throws to Drake London, but man, on those third downs, it just felt like life was really difficult. And the way that the offense was designed and the concepts that he was asked to throw against really weren't giving him a great chance to convert. I think that when you watch some of the better teams in the NFL when it comes to the higher third down conversions, yes, they're calling plays that they go, okay, we're setting this up for this one player to be open so that we can convert this third down. I'm not saying that like singular and primary focuses are bad play calls or bad concepts, but on a lot of these, it was like, again, it was just like a lot of clear out stuff that wasn't really working. It wasn't really putting that much of a threat on the defense, and they were able to rally, especially if those passes were in front of the sticks, and hold the Falcons to punts and not being able to convert on third down. So it just didn't feel like there were a lot of answers for them, and it just felt like life was very difficult on the Falcons on third down. And even if they convert half of those, like even if it's, well, half, I guess 50% would be pretty good. So, like, if you're like 3 or 4, maybe this game is different. Maybe you get into field goal range. Maybe you win this game by 2. So, it could have been something where that could have been the case.
I think, to me, schematically, they don't have answers because personnel-wise, they don't have answers.
And it's true.
They're
a little limited.
They're extremely thin. Like, here's the impact of Drake London, right? First of all, he misses the game last week against Miami, and their offense goes completely dead, right? Bijan Robinson, obviously maybe the best receiving back in football. Him and Christian McCaffrey, like the 2 best receiving backs in football right now. That's great. Kyle Pitts, I'd call him average 71 receiving grade. They don't have another wide receiver with a receiving grade above 60. And kind of the way our scale works is that if you're not even hitting a 60 receiving grade, you're pretty much just dysfunctional. Right, because we don't have it unless you're dropping a boatload of balls. It doesn't get down to the 30s and 40s very often when it comes to like the complete lack of production. First of all, from Darnell Mooney, they just get nothing. He doesn't have 200 receiving yards this year. And then you have
he's missed time, but
Casey Washington and some of these other guys that this Atlanta team, they're so thin. And look, Drake London, we both have him as most impressive because individually he was the best player on the field.
Yeah.
But Darnell Mooney, Casey Washington, Ray McLeod, Kadero Hodge. There's nobody in this passing game. Pitts is okay. Bijan's a matchup problem, and you have to center your offense around him. And Drake London's a beast, but there's nothing else here. They need another receiver in the worst way. I would expect that actually to be a massive focus in the offseason because this team now is 3-5. Had they found a way to win this game, I might sit here and go, this is the team that needs to trade for Jacoby Myers. I go, get somebody in there.
Sure.
Right? At 3-5, I don't know if it's worth it at this point. And to me, this is – and Kyle Pitts in the last year of his contract, right?
I think so.
Right? Didn't they?
Because he's like been on the trade block. I think he is.
I mean, if you trade him away, you're throwing a Drake London or Bijan pretty much every play at that point. But they're short on receivers. Their lack of a second receiver showed in the big loss last week. And then, I mean, you can't lose games when Drake London has a day like this. And it was obviously a missed extra point played a big factor in that as well. But, I mean, they're so thin offensively that I think even those concepts where we're trying to just work one guy open just to get somebody open, it's because a lot of those other guys, other than London or Bijan, they can't get themselves open.
Yeah.
So you could run, theoretically, to me, you could run a whole lot of man-to-man coverage on this Falcon team. You're going to get what you get from London, but nobody else is really going to beat you.
That's fair. I think it's fair. Yeah, Pitts is in the last year of his deal. Anything else on this one before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Last game, Ravens-Dolphins. This is Thursday Night Football's game. The Ravens end up winning 28-6. It was Chris Greer's last game as the general manager for the Miami Dolphins, as they have mutually agreed to part ways. Sure. The Baltimore Ravens, their top 5 graded players. Safety Malachi Starks, look at that, top of the list. Love to see that. 91.2 overall grade. Had an interception in this one. Defensive tackle Travis Jones, an 89.6. Tight end Charlie Kohler, an 86.1. Tight end Isaiah Likely, an 84.1. Safety Kyle Hamilton, an 81.0. Lamar Jackson, an 87.8 in his return to the starting lineup here. On Miami side of things, wide receiver Jalen Waddle, an 84.2. Safety Minka Fitzpatrick, a 75.2. Offensive tackle Patrick Paul, a 71.9. Center Aaron Brewer, a 70.5, and then cornerback Rasul Douglas, a 70.2. Tua Tagovailoa in this game, a 68.1. What was your stats that told the story here for Thursday Night Football?
So I got some splits on the way that Todd Monken called this game, because similar to what I talked about before with the Bills and the Chiefs and reading the fronts and the personnel, it was more so the fronts than the personnel in this game for Todd Monken. It looked pretty clear to me early with Lamar Jackson coming back that he was trying to just run some basics in their offense just to kind of get his feet back wet, get him back in a rhythm after missing a few weeks, which makes a lot of sense, right? Mm-hmm. You want to get your quarterback a little bit comfortable. As the game moved on, what they were doing was really reading out kind of a similar vibe, whether the Dolphins had either 4 or 5 defensive linemen on the field. Because on early downs, they were going with 5 a lot, because what do you want to do against the Ravens? You want to stop the run, right? It's Derrick Henry. It's still Lamar Jackson. Even if he wasn't quite 100%, I don't know if he was 100% in this game. There was times it looked like he wasn't quite full speed, but it was good enough to play. So when the Dolphins had 4 or fewer defensive linemen, whether they were lighter fronts up front, the Ravens had 9.4 yards per carry and only 6.9 yards per pass. Makes sense. 7 in the back end in coverage, all of that. When there was 5 or more defensive linemen out there, Dolphins had the right idea. Only 3 yards per carry, but they weren't prepared in coverage. 12.6 yards per attempt for Lamar Jackson. I just think Todd Monken, once he got by the first, I'd say 3 or 4 drives, and he really started reading out, okay, what do I need to do to beat this team? And Lamar was excellent in play action as well. That's really where they hurt the Dolphins the most, was when they were in those 5 down fronts in early downs, and they went to play action on early down, especially from under center. That's when Jackson really hurt him all night. I thought Todd Monken did an absolutely awesome job after just kind of getting Lamar's feet wet, then going, okay, here's how we beat this team, and they did it pretty soundly.
The reason why I was really excited about Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens, not that that's anything new, but I remember when he was the offensive coordinator with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back when I was covering the team as a beat reporter in 2017, 2018. And they had O.J. Howard and they had Cam Brate during that time. And they really loved using that 2 tight end system. And Todd Monken was very willing to go to that, get both of those guys involved. Those were the offenses where Jameis Winston was throwing it all over the place, and they were scoring a ton of points, ton of yards, everything. And I feel as though that's where the Ravens are really leaning here this season when they're at their best, is that tight end passing game. And we saw Charlie Kohler and Isaiah Likely, and we didn't see Mark Andrews on there, but like Mark Andrews when he's in the fold. Lamar Jackson in this game, he was 6 for 6 for 70 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns to tight ends. 95.4 passing grade when he was targeting tight ends, as well as when they were the primary read. So not even like security blanket, things are falling apart, where's the tight end? There he is. Primary read tight end passing concepts. He's playing very, very well. He's very, very confident throwing to those tight ends, and I think that that's when the Baltimore Ravens are at their best. And I don't think that the Dolphins had any answers for it. Very clearly, they didn't when you have passing grades that are like that. So I love the tight end passing game here for the Baltimore Ravens. I think that is the key to the offense moving forward as Lamar Jackson gets more healthy, as they go through a little bit more of a weaker part of their schedule, as they climb back in that playoff race. They're going to be doing that through the tight ends, I believe.
No, absolutely. I mean, Mark Andrews, good to see Isaiah Likely really have his first big game of the year. And don't forget about the third guy there, Charlie Kohler, catching the touchdown, too. That's a valuable player for them as well. Plus, getting Patrick Ricard back healthy recently really helps the run game as well. This is just what the Ravens offense is supposed to look like. They can run the football against certain fronts when they want to. The 3 tight ends, all 3 of them are good. A whole lot of Zay Flowers on the outside as well. This was kind of the ideal Thursday night here in Lamar Jackson's first game back for the Ravens to have offensively and defensively as well. They were really darn good in this game too.
Most impressive and disappointing?
I'm going to go with the Ravens, just that safety group. We talked about recently Kyle Hamilton moving down into the box. Why does their run defense look a little bit better lately? Because Kyle Hamilton's basically serving as their third linebacker. He was all over the place. Malachi Starks with the breakout game, the interception on the Ravens' last defensive play of the game. And credit to, and not a guy in the top 5, I believe his grade was in the high 60s, Alohi Gilman coming in there off the trade, learning a new system, playing free safety back there so Kyle Hamilton can act as that big nickel or strong safety, whatever you want to call them. That group of safeties, as it did last year with Ardarius Washington in a different way, That group of safeties right now is they're creating a little bit of a defensive revival for Baltimore. Both sides of the ball were really good in this game, and that's what makes you really encouraging. Okay, maybe they can claw their way back into this thing. It's not just Lamar Jackson. The defense had to be better, too, and they were outstanding in this game.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton, 42 snaps as either a slot corner, so like a left or right corner, or as a left or right outside linebacker. You talked a couple of weeks ago about them getting him close to the line of scrimmage and just letting him be a focal point of their run defense and just being a bonus when it comes to that point of attack. And he's been fantastic at that since they've moved him a lot closer to the line of scrimmage, and he was still impressive in this game. I think they're going to continue to do that moving forward. So that is he was my most impressive there as well. I know you mentioned Malachi Starks too, but Kyle Hamilton, just the way that they are using him, is the most impressive. Most disappointing, I feel like, is just the Chris Greer era, the Mike McDaniel era in Miami. I feel like we're getting close to the end here. Greer is no longer there. McDaniel, it seems like, is going to coach the rest of the season, but I don't know how much confidence he is going to have for another year after this. It feels like they're going to move on there. I wonder if we're getting to the point where Tua Tagovailoa is going to become sort of like the next Russell Wilson in just buying out his contract and then moving on from him. The drafts have not been good enough for this team. I think it was really good for them to get a third-round pick for Jalen Phillips. I'm not going to lie. I think Jalen Phillips is a very talented edge rusher, but come on, he's had 2 major lower body injuries over the last 2 years on the last year of his contract. You weren't about to pay that guy. Why would you? And so you move on from him and you get a third-round pick for it? That's
smart stuff.
I think that's excellent return for the Miami Dolphins, who were going nowhere this year, and they were not going to re-sign Jalen Phillips.
And we could see if there's more coming, if it's a Bradley Chubb. There's been rumors on Jalen Waddle, but I don't think they're going to do that. I don't think that's coming. I mean, to ditch some of these veteran players, and they've been preparing the salary cap for future years, getting rid of Ramsey to get Minkah Fitzpatrick back as kind of a rental player, and he could get traded in the next 24 hours. Also, there's been rumors about that. Somebody I would think would find him, somebody who needs a safety would find him valuable as well. I think you're seeing the teardown in real time with the Dolphins, right? Mm-hmm. McDaniel, I wouldn't expect McDaniel to be there next year. And look, I think he'll get an OC job pretty quickly. I still think he's a darn good offensive play caller.
I think so too.
The time has run its course with this team. And then whoever comes in here, then it's the Tua decision of, do we do this right away? Do we ride out the one more year on the contract where it really hurts our cap? How do we go about this? And that might depend on how much they like this very strange quarterback class coming up to me in this upcoming draft.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if the conversation with Miami is going to be, with the head coach coming in, like, hey, what's your plan with Tua? Because we're not moving on from him. Like, you better give me a good answer of what you have to fix this guy and make him a viable quarterback, because I wonder if that's now I don't know if that's going to matter, changing the system, having them do something different, but I wonder if that's going to be the conversation, like with the owner, is I'm not cutting him. Like, we're not giving him all this dead money, so you better come into a head coaching interview with a good plan for what you're going to do with Tua.
Well, it's either a good plan with Tua, or is it could even be a decision that goes into March and April of, is there anybody we really like in this draft? Or you have to pay the dead money, either pay him next year or pay the dead money for 2026 anyway when it's heavy. You go, okay, we'll stall with him for one more year, and then see if maybe there's a certain guy there at Ohio State that we might be able to get, or something like that. Julian's saying, good player, find him. Look, I mean, they're in the middle of a teardown, and we're just watching it one step at a time. And the Jalen Phillips trade on the other side, if we want to get into that first, the Eagles, I think so far have been the most interesting team with 24 hours to go in this, because 2 trades, they've made 3 trades. They got Michael Carter, the nickel from the Jets. They got Jair Alexander from Baltimore. I guess
we made 5 trades.
Is it 5 now?
Yeah, because Michael Carter, Jair Alexander, Jalen Phillips, John Mechie, Tank Bigsby.
Oh, yeah, because they got Mechie went back to the Jets for Carter.
Oh, right, yeah, sorry.
And then Bigsby was earlier. Yeah, you're right. And that's going to make an impact starting here. Started last week, too. But the three more recently, I think the 2 that intrigued me the most, obviously, Phillips for an Eagles edge group that is dead last in the league in sacks, and I believe they're 19th in pass rush win rate. It just hasn't been the same since Nolan Smith got hurt, right? They needed somebody else. I like Jalex Hunt. I like what Josh Uche's been doing in a part-time role, but they need somebody like a Jalen Phillips who can play in a starting caliber role. That's big time for them to get, albeit all the reasons you mentioned, injured player, third-round pick, heavy price, but Eagles don't care about a third-round pick. One, how he can draft, and 2, they're trying to win a trophy again.
Yeah, they're trying to win a Super Bowl, so I think that they're playing on a different playing field, right? I mean, you can't
Their third round pick is number 100 in the draft.
It's number 100. Yeah. And if Phillips is fully healthy through the rest of the run, and he signs a decent contract this offseason, and he's fully healthy the next year, they will get like a 4th round pick back in the comp pick formula. Now, to the people out there who are like, oh, he'll get a 3rd round pick back, I very much do not think that they're going to get a 3rd round pick back. I think the best case scenario, they'll get a 4th round pick back, and you have to have him be fully healthy next year for that to be the case. So that's a big if with somebody who's had 2 major lower body injuries already in his career recently. So I think that they might get a 4th round pick back, and if that's the case, then it's still fine, because in reality, like, you're trading your late 3rd round pick for a 4th round comp pick. So that's going to be like 40, 45 spots, something like that. That is a risk or a rental for Jalen Phillips as you're going to repeat for a Super Bowl. To me, is worth it. It's not a how did Howie Roseman do it again type of thing. Like, he can't keep getting away with it. Like, it's not one of those again. But it is something that I think is a win-win for both parties.
I think the other trade, too, with the Jets is extremely interesting, maybe even in a more creative sense than this. Because Jalen Phillips is obvious. Hey, we don't have much off the edge. We need another guy. Go get him. Mm-hmm. The Michael Carter one, who's he's really a guy who I think could fit Vic Fangio's system a bit better than Aaron Glenn and Steve Wilkes, more of a zone nickel kind of player. But that's the thing, is as a slot corner and a guy who's been a darn good one for a long time, I wonder if instead of, and maybe Jair Alexander could be the solution to the outside problem too, but hasn't been great this year. That's why Baltimore shipped him out. Are we going to get, coming out of the bye week, Michael Carter possibly as the starting nickel, and Cooper DeJean now as the outside answer to Kelly Ringo and Adoree Jackson struggling on the other side, on the outside? Is this the – because you and I both believe in Cooper DeJean and his ability to play on the outside, right? Mm-hmm. Go watch the Iowa tape. He can play on the outside, no problem. Mm-hmm. Is that what they're going? Was that the idea behind trading for Michael Carter? Is Carter in the slot and DeJean outside? I think that, especially, we'll probably talk about it again later in the week when we preview the Eagles or whatever else we see from the deadline. But if anything's announced, I'd be very curious to see if DeJean, if they've decided he is their solution, and they went, you know what, there was an available starting nickel at the deadline that was easier to get than an outside corner, trading Mechie, and I think a pick swap it was. And Mechie then weren't using really anyway.
Right.
That could be a really crafty trade that could fix a big problem on the back end for Philly. I like that one a lot.
I hope we have an active trade deadline, because it's always very fun when we have an active trade deadline. Obviously, we're breaking that down over the next 24 hours, 48 hours. We'll break down the rest for you guys. Whenever there's going to be these big trades, these big moves at the trade deadline, we'll be here for all that sort of analysis. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel so you don't miss any of that. If you have a PFF Plus subscription, we love you for that. If you don't have a PFF Plus subscription, you can see all the grades, all the data, everything for the players that are on your team currently, or maybe the new players that might be coming over the next 24, 48 hours. PFF NFL Show 25. That's the promo code for you to get 25% off that PFF sub, for you guys to see all of the data, all the grades, everything that you want for the players that are on your team. And like we said, maybe some of the new additions that are coming. If you are interested in getting involved with what we've got over here at PFF, sales@pff.com. We would love to talk to you out there. Yeah, there we go. Week 9. We got Monday Night Football coming up. Monday Night Football is
Cowboys-Cardinals.
Cowboys-Cardinals.
Jerry Jones also won't say what it is, but apparently he said the Cowboys have made a trade, just not telling us what it is yet.
Oh.
Who knows what that may be?
Really?
Or does it depend on them winning tonight? That could be. Jerry Jones says.
Jerry's always doing this.
Says Cowboys have made one trade, possibly more to come. A lot of action going on right now. That's the quote.
Again, I hope it's an active trade deadline. I wonder if it's for a pass rusher. There's no way it's for Trey Hendrickson, but not for a first-round pick. That'd be crazy.
Well,
that'd be crazy.
They have an extra.
That's true. That's true. That's true.
They have an extra.
That's true.
If they shipped off the extra one, if they basically
trading Micah Parsons just to trade for Trey Hendrickson,
I mean,
would look like some malpractice of malpractice.
The guys behind the glass want that first round.
Yeah, I know. They're screaming.
Now.
I can hear them.
They want it bad right now.
I can hear them right now. For everybody behind the glass, for Dalton Wasserman, I'm Trevor Sikkema saying thank you guys so much for watching the PFF NFL show. We'll see you throughout the week as the trade deadline looms, but we'll absolutely see you on Wednesday for the preview show at 1 o'clock Eastern time. See you guys then. Thanks for watching.